on the second day of the trio Conclave, Technologically Self-Reliant Bharat, Connecting the Dots, New Age Industry Academia Collaboration for Viksit Bharat. Let us take a moment to reflect on the significant insights and discussions from yesterday. We'll start today with a brief report summarizing the key highlights and takeaways from day one. I invite on stage Mr. Shiv Shukla, Head Policy, Government Affairs and Growth Projects, Reliance Education, for summary of day one and also set the context for day two. Yes, sir, please take it. Yeah. Let me introduce Mr. Shiv Shukla for you. Shiv Shukla has more than a decade of cross-functional experience in several sectors with special focus on education and skill development. Currently, he is Head of Policy, Government Affairs and Growth Projects at Reliance Jio Institute. In his past assignment, he was associated with Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, HEDREC and Struggles and Planning Commission of India. Shiv has led various research and policy advocacy related projects with union and state governments like Future of Jobs, Education 4.0 and its preparedness, National Framework for Career Counseling, Atal Teacher Training Program and employer-led models of job creation. He also led research division of Royal Education Council projects for Bhutan and was instrumental in establishing path-breaking ideas and structures towards planning, designing and implementation of National Innovation Project and improving the quality and relevance of curriculum projects under the School of Education Unit, Bhutan. He has also represented India at various forums, co-chair of Education and Skill Development, Working Group of BRICS Business Council, and head of JEDCO Skill Development Working Group. His authored and co-authored articles are published in leading journals, including an Asian Development Bank Research Journal. I invite Mr. Shiv Shukla for his session.
Trust me, I was told to write a lengthy bio, so that's not my fault. Good morning, namaste to all of you. Yesterday, we had some very, very interesting session. We had speakers from, I represent Varanasi. So yesterday, perhaps all the Shivlinga, Jyotirlingas were represented here in this house. So people from Northeast, people from North India, from, of course, so every parts of the country we were here. And the idea was to deliberate and discuss of this very important topic of R&D, academia, and industry. Trust me, it's been close to 13 years of my professional journey, and I've been hearing this from day one of my professional life. Still, we are perhaps not able to get some concrete solution. We can have a lot of deliberation, we can have a lot of working papers, we can have a lot of research papers around it, but somewhere, and Unikrishnanji and I, we had some very interesting discussion on our way from Geo campus to this place, that why it's important to also look at some basic realities which are extremely critical. So before I get into what we discuss, which I'll keep it very, very brief, reason being there's a YouTube recording available. I request all of you to listen to the conversations. There were discussions around patent, there were discussions around how Professor Rao talked about why industry, academia only looks at the industry as a placement agent. They just go to industry for placements and they don't really discuss the R&D part of it. We had somebody who talked about the Amul story, which is again very, very interesting. So in this house, how many of us have heard of an organization called PHOOL, P-H-O-O-L? Just raise your hand. So out of close to 100 people sitting in this room, just 5 of you are aware of it. It's a Kanpur-based startup, again, very much part of the MSc segment. In the last 2 years' time itself, it's EBITDA positive. Now, when they started, what they do, they collect the flowers from temples and they create dhoop batti. So, when we look at this topic of R&D, we forget one important end user, in this case, the students, right? Somewhere when we talk about industry, we are looking at the labor force, the students who are coming out of academia. When we look at the academic system, we look at the students. So whatever our approach is, whatever the action points are going to be, somewhere we have to keep in mind that students should be at the core of it, no matter what we do. And I can say that with some conviction that this is going to solve a lot of the problems. P Capital, which was earlier Sequoia Capital, Peak XV now, they are the investment firm. So they released a quarter report. I was talking to JV, who is based in Dubai, one of the investors, and he mentioned that when we talk about the MSME startup ideas and investments, we are only attracting 13% of them. We should ask ourselves, how many of us, we have management college, I was asking this to professors at my college also. How many of us are projecting case studies of MSMEs? Are we? Can we raise our hands? I don't see any. So it's very important to also look from that perspective. We can keep discussing for ages and ages, and trust me, there'll be no solution. So solution has to be a very interwoven approach. And that's where it's important that all of us put our best foot forward. See, when we look at several areas, so Indian economy, we shifted to more service-driven. We got used to Amazon, Flipkart, now to Blinkit, mostly service-driven society. So if you look at that, a lot of those startups still by now, for young generation, if you are creating something technology, that's something which is projected as something very big. Your own Mumbai has a shoe laundry, right? Sandeep Kajakar, who is the founder of it, he is already running a EBITDA positive company. And he's doing a lot of research. But are we really approaching him? Perhaps not. We only look at the big firms, Reliance and Adani's and all those big organizations. But we have to look at these small firms also. I was talking about Fool. He had some funding available for research. I know the founder. I had a long discussion with him. So while he was collecting the flowers, he wanted to have some form of R&D. He had limited, but fund was available. But did we have that case study to be shared in the classroom? Perhaps not. So, three things. So to summarize yesterday's discussion, because I have limited time, I would love to talk on this topic because this is something very, very close to my heart. So yesterday's discussion, I have bucketed it under three areas. How do we look at the entire course of discussion yesterday? So this is under connect, create, and collaborate. Now, when I say connect, I gave you one example of Fool. It's important to have these case studies ready to be discussed within academia and also to be highlighted to our students also, to faculty members also. Second, we also look at, there was a suggestion which has come from, I think, Professor Rao or somebody mentioned in that panel, to have a live tracker of how do we do this matchmaking. Right, we have, again, I was discussing this with Tony Krishnanji, we have Health Stack, we have ABCD. Why not to have a live tracker where all the problem statements of academia can come on that live platform, and there could be live connecting of those problems, and if I am an R&D institution, I can just pick one problem from there, and I can look at some collaboration, immediately form a working group, put a timeline to it, and then take it forward. So that connect is very, very important, extremely important. Second is collaboration. So the topic itself is about collaboration, how industry academia collaborates, how we do focus on R&D, and this is specifically to MSME. I will not get into the data point. We all know it's one of the largest employers after agriculture, contributing a very good amount to the overall export and GDP. So we are all aware of those numbers. But when I say collaborate, it's perhaps more than that. As an academic institution, this is something which I have already started in my institution. We'll have perhaps next year, at least the management is pretty much on board for that. We should have some form of the skills tracker also for MSME. Like I said, how many of us also encourage our students to join MSME? I was talking about this whole revolution of how we move to service industry, right? Because the young generation shifted to that. A lot of startups came into that. So in that area of Amazon and Flipkart, we had 1,800 EBITDA positive companies in India. It's a massive number. We all discuss about Olas and Ubers of this world, but we have to talk about these success stories. And that's where young mind will penetrate into MSMEs. And that's where innovation also will come. Right? If we are expecting old generation, and with all due respect to people who are sitting here, but I'm sure they will agree to it, but a technology penetration can happen more if we have young generation there, right? So that is important, and that's where new ideas will come, new innovation will come, and that's where industry also will come. We also need large-scale industries. Let's not also be in our own dreams that only having these website and service-driven organization which can drive MSME. It cannot. If MSME is producing something, we need more Marutis of this world to buy those products. Right? So it's very important to get young minds to MSME. So that's about collaboration part. So I have talked about create, I have talked about collaborate. I have talked about connect and collaborate. Now create. So in terms of creation, we had Dr. Rahul from the Agro Limited, Aries Agro Limited. He also highlighted about some platform. There were a few questions from, I think, Somaya University faculty members. He highlighted about the online portal they have where you can go and file certain problem statement and find the solution. We had Hemant G from Asian Paints. Again, he highlighted very important point. Somewhat I could relate to what he was saying, that we could discuss this topic for years and years, but we have to look at these basic rules of the game. If we really have to, next year when we meet here in the same campus for the discussion, we should be in a position to say that, hey, look, we have these 10 case studies to be presented. No more panel discussions. Let's just have 10 success stories to be presented here. Right? We can come and talk and discuss, but we need to have those success stories. So while we were designing this entire conclave, I was part of it. I have all the senior dignitaries here. They actively guided us to drive this whole program. We picked at three important buckets. We looked at three important buckets. One was to look at how we align our efforts to 2047 Viksit Bharat goal of the nation. So that's where the yesterday discussion were also to look at the larger macro trends. The second panel looked at some specifics of how tech penetration has happened. And that's again very important. So I'm not talking about the AI and MLs of this world. Again, we had very interesting discussion, Unikesh and JI. Perhaps in this room, 90% of us, we are aware of AI and ChatGPT. But no one can claim that I'm an AI expert. If we go for knee replacement, we know that he or she has a success story to talk. Maybe mere dadaji ka kya hai, mere chachu ka kya hai. So I know he's a good doctor. But can I claim that I did this search on ChatGPT, I got the exact result? No. The OpenAI founder himself has said that every 6th day there are 160 more languages we are developing. But we claim that we are like all AI experts. It's not the case. So what I'm trying to highlight, that I'm not saying about AI, only AI, but yes, there are some disruptive business models which are there, which are digital economy driven. So the second session of yesterday highlighted that part of it, that how certain disruptions are happening and MSME is no more. If you look at the entire value chain of MSME, more than 76% is highly value chain driven organizations, and they need a lot of these technologies. So second part was around that aspect. Today again we have a list of keynote speakers. We also wanted to have people to come and share their experience and also share certain case studies. So we already have senior speakers lined up here. And then we had decided to have one session around, again, startups, that which are the new frontiers which we can focus upon. So I'll stop here, and again, thank you so much, but let's just focus on those roots, because that's where the transformation from India to Bharat will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shukla, for providing the framework for Day 2 and also the detailed summary of Day 1. Now I request Dr. Vivek Sunapwar, Principal, KJ Somaya College, KJ Somaya Institute of Technology, Sion, to come up on stage to felicitate Mr. Shukla. Let us now transition into the essence of our conclave's purpose. In the forthcoming keynote sessions, our esteemed speakers will illuminate us with cutting-edge insights, paving the way for innovation, discovery, exploration, and advancements in the field of research and development. For the first session, we have with us Mr. Robin Banerjee. I invite Mr. Robin Banerjee on stage. Welcome, sir. Let me introduce Mr. Robin Banerjee for you. Mr. Robin Banerjee has qualifications such as Chartered Accountant, Cost and Management Accountant, and Company Secretary, alongside a master's degree in Commerce. He presently serves as the chairman of Nucleon Research Private Limited, a renowned clinical research organization operating globally. Prior to this role, Robin Banerjee held the position of Managing Director at Caprihans India Limited for a decade, showcasing his adept leadership skills. His professional journey includes significant roles at prestigious companies like Hindustan Unilever, ArcelorMittal Germany, Thomas Cook, SRS Steel, and Suzlon Energy, where he contributed as an executive director and CFO. Additionally, Robin's commitment to corporate governance and social welfare is evident through his engagement as chairman of CII Maharashtra State Council and CII Western Region for Corporate Governance and ESG. Recognized for his outstanding contributions, Robin has been honored with prestigious awards from CFO India Magazine and Manufacturing Today Magazine. Robin is a prolific author with several best-selling books to his credit, covering topics ranging from corporate fraud to business blunders. Over to you, sir.
It's good that everyone sees me. I'm a very tall person. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. There is an advantage to speak early morning because most of you are still awake. Post-lunch is very, very challenging. My topic, I'm supposed to speak to about 15 minutes. And my topic is on education, business, and economy. I represent the business side of this story. I'm a businessman. And to speak to such august audience, I think it's always good to start with some stories. We're talking about this trio. This whole conclave is on trio. And my topic is also on trio: education, business, and economy. Which is the happiest country on earth? Which is the happiest country on earth? For 7 years consecutively, Finland, and all of you know the answer, has been the happiest country on earth. And when you look at the happiness, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty as to how and why that country is happy. I just went into what was the education of that country, what happens there. Because if you can bring some learnings, most of you are educationists here. One particular aspect of Finnish education which drew my attention is that in that country, for children before schooling, preschool stage, they learn whether whatever they are seeing is factual or otherwise. That means they are given to see some pictures or on screen some movements, and preschool children, which is less than 5 years, have to express themselves. Is it correct? Is it true? What does it mean? They are already trying to figure out the deep fakes. We are talking about deep fakes. Children in Finland has been learning that for years and ages together. That's a particular aspect of way a child is educated drew my particular attention. Another country, which is the richest country in Asia and the 7th richest in the world. Richer does not mean GDP, it is per capita income. And that per capita income in Asia is Singapore. It has more than $80,000 per capita income. Our country has about $2,200. Just, ladies and gentlemen, to get that size all right. What's that education in Singapore they do? Two aspects drew my attention. One, they don't have examination. There is a continuous learning process to the high school exam, and the process of education is, as long as a child does not learn the previous chapter, the next chapter is not taught to him or her. And second, there is one-on-one, the student and the teacher interacts one-on-one, which obviously is not possible in India. India, we can't have a one-on-one, but what we definitely can have is, can we look at this whole issue of appearing for an examination as we go along in our life? Having said that, Finland and Singapore experiences and my learning on education, I want to put little figures as to where India is going. All of you know that India is now the 5th largest country in the world, and I don't have to explain to all of you that. We also know, as you know, just to give you an example, fun figures, the whole world GDP is about $105 trillion, let's say $100 trillion. And India, as you have heard, is about $3.8 trillion. That's not true. We are already $4.1 trillion. Fortune magazine has already announced last week, by the way. It's already 4.1. And the next country, which is $4.2 trillion, is Japan. Another few months, we'll be up and running the 4th country in the world. And the next one is Germany, is $4.5 trillion. Maybe we are 18 months away. That means another 18 months or 2 years, we will be the 3rd largest country in the world. Well, that's okay. Most of you are aware of it. Nothing. Now, what I am going to tell you next, perhaps you are not aware. Or even if you are aware, maybe it bypassed your attention. There is something called European Union. There are 27 countries in European Union. India and these 27 countries, GDP, India is going to bypass the GDP of whole of European Union by 2050. By 2050. Okay, you may say, no, I think I've heard something like that somewhere. The next one, perhaps you have not heard. The largest country on earth, the richest country, the wealthiest country is the United States of America. That country's GDP is $28 trillion. I told you we have $4 trillion. By 2075, I'm not going to see it, India is going to bypass US as the largest country on earth. And this is not my prediction, it is Financial Times prediction. Please go and see it, check it out. Who is against anti-India? They have now understood that now India is unstoppable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why did I say this? I said this because all these are assumptions. There are assumptions behind it, and broadly speaking, the assumption is India will grow at around 5.8% per annum for the next 10 years, thereafter 4.8, and if we can do that, India is going to attain what I just said. This will all happen provided we all get educated appropriately. And in this whole field of education, why education, everything, yesterday you have all discussed, there is a huge disruptor called artificial intelligence. And all of you, or most of you, are educationists. This is a disruptor, no question, whether the earth will exist the way we are existing, whether we are going to die, whether human beings are going to become robots. There are hundreds of thousands of millions of explanations against, for and against it. But this disruptor, this artificial intelligence, is a good news, is a bad news. The good news is that it is going to help us. It is going to help us make our life more, hopefully, more productive, more more compliant, more better, and so on and so forth. That's why we are always looking for it. We all know that this AI comes in, a lot of jobs will go away. But the bad news is, the bad news especially for the educationists and for we, the people who are on the education side of the story, is this whole issue of personal education assistance, PLA as it's called. That's the biggest disruptor, I feel, that the children would be able to learn themselves. They may not need you and me. If you go to the Economist magazine and just type the word Economist magazine, I'm sure this university has this, you have the access, just type the word education and you will find that they've already predicted, they've already started predicting, please go and listen to it. It is something which all of you educationists must try to think and where we are heading for, that the educationists are going to lose jobs. And I know I have a short time and I don't want to explain to you. Many of you would have discussed all that yesterday. But the fact of the matter is, this whole concept of PLA will completely change, or may completely, and I wouldn't say will, many of it is all conjectures, nobody knows what the future is, but may completely change the future. Coming back, we are talking about education, business, and economy. I told you in the economy, this country is going to be the largest on earth. Give and take 5 or 10 years. Many of us, at least me, will not be able to see even we are bypassing European Union, but all these young people over here definitely will be able to, hopefully, be able to see that India is becoming the largest country. Now, in this trio, economy, we are going to be the largest. It all happens provided the education business works well. As far as business is concerned, business has to play a lot of role in this whole game of making education worthwhile. Ladies and gentlemen, we the business, most of us don't want to spend on education, whether you like it or not. I understand in this country there is something called CSR, 2% of net profit of large companies, not small companies, large companies, companies having turnover of more than 1,000 crore, companies having share capital more than 500 crores, or companies having profits more than 2 crores, only they are liable to spend 2% of the net profit as CSR. That's a very small number. This country is 4 lakh crore. This 16,000 crore will not make a difference. Business will only work and spend money provided there is some interest they have in themselves. They are going to spend money, they can say that, okay, if I pay 100 rupees, this is the benefit I'm going to get. There are very few people on earth, the businessmen, who are really doing education for charity. CSR also is another game, but that is, the government is forcing it. You are the educationists. What is business looking for? The business is looking for just 2 words, employable education. This is what we need to make happen. If you somehow can deliver employable education, you will see business and academia coming together automatically. And that's where the issue is. Business feels, oh, educationists, oh, look, kar rahe. They are doing their own stuff, we are doing ours. We would not work because it's just not a charitable institution. Coming back, because the time is short, what is therefore business looking for? Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's an engineering college, apart from the fact that we have to teach engineering, we have to make managers. We need to create managers of the future. Managers of the future is going to make whatever I told you, India going to become the largest country on earth. In order to make managers, you as academicians, what is that you need to do to make it happen? 6 things, ladies and gentlemen. Fast, I'm going to tell you what I feel those 6 stuffs are, which you guys need to focus upon. And hopefully when you leave this seminar, you will be able to remember some of it. To say, okay, maybe these are the ones which we should focus upon. First, as academia, what you need to teach the students of the future, the managers of the future, is finance. You are in engineering college for sure, but if the students or managers does not understand finance, he or she can never be a successful manager. There is no doubt on that. Finance must be learned. Finance doesn't mean you have to be an accountant. Finance doesn't mean that you need to draw a profit and loss account balance sheet. What it means, just two things. You are academics. Just make them read a balance sheet and profit and loss account. You don't need to make them prepare one. All of us can read a book. You need not be an author. You need not be able to write a book, but at least you are able to read a book. You must teach the future managers how to read a profit and loss account balance sheet. I think we miss it. I think we miss it, broadly speaking. Number two, what are the ways money can be brought in? Just two things. There are only two sources of finance. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, there is no third source. The first source number one is equity, which is share capital, equity, and the second source is debt, borrowings. There is no third source. If Somaya Vidyavihar University can develop the third source, you will get the Nobel Prize of Economics. Chances are that Nobel Prize is rather bleak because there isn't third source. Just teach these two, how to read a balance sheet, profit and loss account, what are the sources of finance, equity and debt. Broadly, that's it. I know I'm making it very simple, but we have to learn finance. Wonderful. Second, what we need to teach our students and future managers is operations. Delivery. It's all theory, it doesn't work, but we have to deliver. Operations is all about delivery. When you go to a restaurant, you just order your idli, like nice little soft idli which you had 6 months back. That restaurant has to deliver that soft idli, that experience which they gave you last 6 months back. And within those 2, 3, 4 minutes, and within about 75 or 100 rupees, they have delivered all this. It's nice to say that great big advertisement on restaurant, but the restaurant must deliver the great quality idli the next time when you're visiting. That's all about operations, simply speaking. We don't perhaps teach our future managers enough on operations. The third one, ladies and gentlemen, is work called unique selling proposition. Each one of us are unique. Each product is unique. Why will you, today morning, each one of you, you know what you touched the first thing on when you woke up today? Is mobile, okay? Apart from the mobile, what did you touch? You touched a toothpaste. Have you noticed? That is the first thing we touch as we wake up. And the toothpaste which you're using, have you noticed this toothpaste you must be using for last 1 year, last 5 years, last 10 years, last 20 years. You may not have. You may have tried Baba Ramdev's toothpaste once or twice, but you've gone back to the old toothpaste which you have been using last 30 years. There are only 2 companies on earth which has 85% market share on toothpaste. That's why, because nobody can prepare the same toothpaste. That's a unique selling proposition. Unique selling proposition is that how do you communicate that this is the product to service I have? We discussed startups. Yesterday also we discussed. You shall continue to discuss. What is that unique selling proposition? Why should your product be bought? Why should anybody come to you? Why should anybody give you money? Why is it that you will become an unicorn? Because you have a unique selling proposition. We have to sell. This is, in short, it's called sales and marketing. You have to be able to communicate what is it that you have which others don't. What is it that you are able to help the customers to enjoy. So the first is finance, ladies and gentlemen, you must teach and we must learn. Next is operations, we must learn. The third is unique selling propositions, which is very important. The fourth one, perhaps the least talked about, and perhaps it's not even taught in most of the courses, is called risk management. There is nothing on earth which doesn't have risks. There is nothing on earth there is no risk. When you came and all of you came here, you are sitting here, didn't you take risk saying, I'm coming for the morning session. I heard Robin Banerjee is going to speak. What a lousy talk it could be. But okay, let me take a risk. I've been asked to come. So you came. You took a risk. And we don't know. I don't know at least what the outcome of the risk is, but you took a risk. When you were coming to this place, you took a risk. Anything would have happened. Is there anything on earth where there is no risk? But how do you mitigate risk? First, how do you identify risk? And how do you mitigate those risks? Are we taught? Is it part of our curriculum? Answer is no, ladies and gentlemen. Mostly not. Some high level, some courses will have some risk management. Some corporate governance courses may talk about risks. But that's all. But risk is part of life. We have to handle risk. And managers, why are managers managers? Why are they not staff and workers? Because managers knows how to forecast risk, how to foresee risk, how to manage and mitigate risk. Risk management, ladies and gentlemen, very important. Next one. I told you 6, 4 are gone. There is 2 more. The next one is technology. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing. It's an engineering college. You guys are training technology. But here is, if I would have spoken to, let's say, finance college or Chartered Institute of Chartered Accountants, they are far away from technology. They say, technology hamara baat hi hai nahi. Technology is not that mobile, that little app. No, that's not technology. Of course, that's technology. But technology is much beyond. And we just said AI, that's going to be a disruptor. We need to understand how technology we can take advantage of, how it can create problem, and what the risks that technology can create. And therefore, each one of us need to understand technology. And of course, I'm talking to the engineering university, so of course, that's what you guys are good at. And you obviously are doing a fantastic job of it. The last one. Nothing can happen unless there is human resources. It's all, we are as good as our people. As managers, we are nothing. We are worth 0. Our ability to motivate others, guide others, and get work from others is all will make me or you as a manager successful. Human resources. It's all about managing others, motivating others. In one word, all those who are in HR leadership here is called leadership. We have to produce leadership. You will say, okay, now can I summarize for all this? Finance, operations, unique selling propositions, risk, technology, and human resource. You will say, oh my God, this is very complicated. How do I remember that? Very simple. F for finance, O for operations, U for unique selling proposition, R for risk management, T for technology, H for human resources, A for URTH. We are talking about Industrial 4.0, the 4th Industrial Revolution. And just remember the word 4th. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Let us deliver these 4th to the future of this nation and the world. And believe me, automatically, education, business, and economy all will fall into place. Thank you. Namaskar. God bless you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robin Banerjee, for sharing your experiences and insights with us. Now I request Dr. Pallavi Zamble, Director, Somaya Institute of Dharma Studies, to come over and felicitate Mr. Banerjee.
Finally, we are a multidisciplinary university. Of course, engineering, technology, yoga, dharma studies, philosophy, management, commerce, accountancy, all these things. You have both knowledge.
Yeah. If you have any questions for Mr. Banerjee, you're free to ask.
So your question, the one which I don't know the answer?
Hello, Mr. Banerjee. Here.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. Very insightful discussion that, lecture, I would say. Now I want to ask, what are your suggestions for school education? Anything specific? Because the kind of points you have raised are more like, from bachelors maybe. So yeah, you pointed on the early education of those 2 countries, but anything for Indian education system?
One single word, skill development. In India, school education focuses on theory. The difference is we need to look at practice, which is skill development, which I think it's lacking. India's education up to class 12 is very good. It's only when we get into colleges, not universities, sir, colleges, where 80% of students are outside and only 20% of students are inside, that's what I see. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I see every time I cross a college. I can see all of them are outside, but it's a working day. The college must be going. So to answer the question, I think skill development is where business can do a lot, sir, but business is not doing a lot. Why? Because business doesn't believe that skill development centers are good for them. And therefore, it is very important to have those skills, one, at the school, as I told you, Finland. Finland is already teaching for tens of years deepfake assessment of deepfakes. Today, the deepfake has come. They are trying to develop their children's mind that how to identify what is correct and what is not correct, correct and incorrect. That's the skill development. I know I'm answering a long one because I am from the industry, and I know I'm also part of the game that we don't put enough money for developing skills. So cut the long story short, I think, sir, if we can somehow develop our skills at the children, and as we go along in our life, make our education employable, sky's the limit.
Just one point here, maybe just to add to what you have asked, an extension to what he has said. See, it's very important to look at K-12 space in a different way altogether. These are the most important foundational years where a child is spending more than 14 years. So we can't imagine that after 14 years of spending, he goes to a college, university, and then become job ready. There was a study when Secretary Krishnan was part of Ministry of Skill Development, along with Niti Aayog, we did a brief study, I happened to be part of it, where we did this PIN number alignment of students who had come for the past 1 month through Indian Railways to Delhi. You'll be shocked to know that students doing graduation, post-graduation in Delhi, they were spending 15 to 19,000 rupees only to learn English. So that's the gap you highlighted. You know, that we look at a different way altogether. So it's very important to look at that. Thank you.
I want to be good that you raised this question, Shiv, also. About 5 or 6 years ago, there was not to do with school, sir, but as a general management, the HR companies, 60 HR leaders, it was a global survey, 60 global HR leaders, CHROs, were asked, what is it that one skill you look at when you recruit a manager? What is that one skill you look at when you recruit a manager? I want to ask this question to you here. And if you can get it right, a big chocolate hamper you will get. I promise you a chocolate hamper. If it was not a college, I would have told you a champagne bottle. I don't mind doing that also, if you get it right.
Sir, good patience. Good
No,
patient.
No.
Good
If it was so simple, I wouldn't have offered the champagne then. No. 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 Attitude, no. Communication, no. Team player, no. Huh?
Good listener.
Good listener, no. Inquisitive, no. Huh? Empathy, no. देखो शैंपेन बॉटल इतना आसानी थोड़ी मिलेगा.
Good human being.
Good human being, no. Endurance, no. Adaptive, no. Presence of mind, no. Good learner, no. So everything, all objectives of thesaurus is gone. But one is left. I know it's getting late. All of you are getting late. You know, ladies, And no, champagne is going away. No. Risk management to me answer de diya, ho hi nahi sakta then. Thank you. It is LQ, no. Loyalty, no. EQ, no. All that what you said, ladies and gentlemen, was correct, no question. These are what we as human beings must have. But that little spark which that HR manager is looking at for a youngster, because it builds from the skill development, is called entrepreneurship. They're looking at one word, entrepreneurship. Champagne bottle is gone, I know. But ladies and gentlemen, that is what we must develop in your students. It will make a difference.
Sir, I have one question. I am Shaji Matthew, principal of KJ Somaya Private Industrial Training Institute, generally called as Vocational Training Institute. So in that, I may just want to ask you that here we have plumber course also, right? So in that, the aspirants, those who are coming, the societal looking towards that course is plumber. So that is some degradation is happening in that, so that the students are not coming to that aspect. What is your opinion about that? How to change that aspect in the societal aspect?
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
I have understood your question. When you send your children abroad, send your children abroad to study, आप क्या बोलते हो उसको? बाबा कुछ काम कर लेना, आपका ट्यूशन फी तो निकल जाए. वो काम क्या करते हैं? What work do they do? Have you asked? You know what they do, obviously. Most probably they are in a petrol pump. You know, not putting petrol because petrol pumps are automatically manned, but they would be looking at whatever. Second, restaurants, serving food, cleaning table, if not cleaning the toilet. That's what our child or children does. No one cares. Has anyone ever heard that the child, anyone has called you, you know what, I saw your child at the airport cleaning the toilet. Have you ever heard that? But chances are that he or she is doing it. There's one word called dignity of labor. We as a society must imbibe that. And forget what others are saying. If the society now starts giving this concept of dignity of labor, India will change for all times to come. It first has to start from you and me.
Good morning, sir. One last question.
How do you know it is last?
Sir, what is the future of Indian education? Because government is closing their government schools and most of the schools are private. And it is not affordable to general public. So what is the future?
Sir, no one knows the future. This whole question of AI is no one knows what is this AI going to do. I explained to you the self-learning system, what's happening in AI. No one knows. Is government the right place to do education? We know how our government schools are functioning in India. We know how the education survey is saying that a class 10 student cannot read one paragraph. Sorry, I'm reversing. This was last education survey. A class 7 student cannot read one paragraph. I'm so sorry. A class 10 student cannot read one paragraph of a study material of class 7 student. One paragraph. A class 10 student cannot learn. So these are all government schools. Education, what is happening to the government, I think they are taking lots of steps, whether it should be government or private, $1 million question. When AI is coming, how it is going to develop $1 million question. But I think the new education policy, to cut the long story, is in the right step to go.
Good morning, Mr. Banerjee.
So it wasn't last, sir.
So, wonderful speech. My question is a little bit rhetorical because, you know, I want to ask you, where are our skills gone? Because, you know, India had great architects, great carpenters, great, you know, builders. All those skills are now not there, you know. So where are they gone and how can we bring it back?
I am not a politician. I do not belong to any political party. No, I am going to answer that. People will say, oh, ये तो कोई ruling party का आदमी होगा. I have nothing to do with politics. But I feel, sir, the economic policy of our country, which was called the mixed economic policy from 1947, was wrong. We should have either followed capitalism as a policy or communism as a policy. Na ghar ka, na ghat ka. Mixed economy policy, sir, madam, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are, most of you are faculty, not a single country on earth has been successful in mixed economy. Why on earth we took something which is not proven? And you had exposed 100 billion people, 1 billion people on it, on an economic policy which is not proven, not written, and not even scientifically worked upon. This whole mixed economy, which is nothing but license Raj. What does license Raj do? It actually made that if you are from the upper echelon, you get a job, get a class, you have a license, you get your industry, you have a license, so nobody can enter in industry. So you protected yourself as a mindset from competition. Mixed economic policy protected ourselves from competition. Because we did not have competition, there was no one who was competing to build the best structure called best mandir, a best bridge, a best imara. Nobody was trying to do that. It's psychological. I think we as a country is not following, not I think, we are following capitalism. And you can see what is happening over the last decade or so. You can see. We were the 10th largest country in the world. We are now 5th. It will be only 3rd another few years later. You can, obviously, all of us will have different views. You can complain till the cows go home. But capitalistic economy, that's economic policy, is the only one which is proven to be correct. Where was China? 1970, India and China was same. Do you know that? 1970, ladies and gentlemen, we are 2024. China is $18 trillion economy. We are $4 trillion. It kaise hua? Because they converted from communism, the Mao Zedong theory, to capitalism. And see the answer. Whenever we are not protected, we are open to competition, we as human beings start flourishing. So open to competition, see what will happen.
Hi, Robin, one last thing. You're, of course, brilliant as always. Before that, you said about dignity of labor. I just had to say about your plumbing course, I think maybe you can change the name to something else. That would also help. You know, that always helps here. But he said very well about dignity of labor and how students in the abroad in the US are, you know, working at petrol pumps or, you know, restaurants. I'll just give you an example. I'll take 10 seconds. That one of my students who I was at a restaurant eating, and he comes and says, ma'am, you recruited me, I'm your server today. And I look at him, and he's a 4.0 GPA in data science, and he has got one of the best jobs today in Google. So he didn't have anything, because once he went there, he understood dignity of labor. He could have just, you know, been not told about himself, right? But he came and told me that. So that's what dignity of labor does to you, and I think we should inculcate that a lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee, for patiently answering all questions. Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Apurva K. Mishra, Consultant, Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. I invite Dr. Apurva K. Mishra on stage. Let me introduce Dr. Apurva K. Mishra for you. He is presently serving in the Government of India as a consultant in the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. From February to June 2022, he was a Policy Leader Fellow at European University Institute in Florence, Italy. He previously worked as a Senior Research Fellow at India Foundation, a premier think tank in India where he led initiatives relating to Indian foreign policy. He was also an adjunct faculty of law at Ashoka University and taught courses on law at several universities including Gandhinagar National Law University and Plaksha University. He is the editor-in-chief of India Law Journal. Apurva is a founding member of Robin Hood Army, a voluntary organization of young professionals and students that work to get surplus food from restaurants to less fortunate people in 350 plus cities across 12 countries. He is also the founder of Anubhav Lecture Series, ALS, at University of Chicago, India Center. ALS is an initiative of Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago, to train grassroots level leaders of social enterprises and civil society organizations in India. Apurva has earlier worked at the India Associate Office of Albright Stonebridge Group, a Washington-based strategic advisory firm and corporate law firm Amarchand and Mangaldas. We are fortunate to have you here, sir. Over to you.
The advantage of having good friends is they give very generous introductions. So let me first begin by thanking friends at Bharat Tech Foundation and Soumya Vidya Vihar University for inviting me to speak on this very important topic of promoting R&D for Viksit Bharat at 2047. It's a tough act to follow, Ruben. He as I've heard him speak earlier also, he's a very engaging speaker. What I hope to do over the next 15, 20 minutes that we have together is to talk a little bit about what the world will look like in 2047. And in that very different world, 25 years from now, what will India's growth trajectory be? And what is the role of R&D in achieving our development goals for the next 25 years? 2047 is when we celebrate 100 years of India's independence. It's 25 years away. And the next 25 years is a bit like the second half of a chessboard, where we will see more technological, economic, and social transformation in the next 25 years than what we saw in the first 75 years of our independence. And as Ruben said, and people have made comments, that no one really knows what this world will look like. And in this unknown world, what management consultants like to call the VUCA world, volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. In that VUCA world, we have to figure out a way to go from being a lower middle income country that we are today to a developed country. And so the odds are stacked against us. It's a bit like being asked to play a game without knowing the rules, or being asked to do a journey without having a map in hand of what the terrain will look like. And given these challenges, the role of R&D is going to be very important. But before I talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about the nature of this transformation that the world is experiencing, and within this changing world, the nature of the transformation that our country is experiencing. And once we have a sense of what's happening to the world and to the country, then maybe we can get some ideas about what's the key and what is the strategy that we must adopt to fulfill our national goal of becoming a developed country in the next 25 years. It's almost a cliche to say that we live in a watershed moment, and you will hear thought leaders use various kinds of terms. Ruben used one today, the fourth industrial revolution. People talk about the turbulent 20s that we are living through, a new normal, a reordered world, a world disordered, a world between orders. You see all of these terms being used at various fora. But what each of these terms capture is this sense that something familiar has ended and something new is emerging, in which we are trying to understand India's growth trajectory. And while India's potential is often talked up, and correctly so, by both institutions and leaders inside and outside the country. You saw Ruben talk about what we will be in the next 10 years. We'll be the third largest country. And everyone does that. When we talk about the Indian economy, we talk a lot about its potential, about what's to come. We often forget that this potential is anchored by our track record, that it is on the back of our impressive performance over the last few years that we've been able to that we have the confidence of making these big predictions about what we'll be able to achieve in the next 25 years. And let me just give you some numbers to explain how, why is it that we are so optimistic about our future in an otherwise bleak world. The number of people living in absolute poverty has decreased dramatically in the past 4 decades. In 1981, half of the total population in the developing world, 50%, was living in absolute poverty. By 2010, despite a 60% increase in the population of the developing world, that figure has dropped to about 20%. So even though more people are now living in the developed world, from 50%, only about 20% of people today live in absolute poverty. A large proportion of this decrease in people living in absolute poverty has come from India and China. A good proxy to get a sense of development in a country is to look at life expectancy. A baby born today is expected to live for how many years? That is a good proxy to get a sense of how well a country is doing, what's the state of socioeconomic development in that country. At the time of independence in India, a child born was expected to live for 32 years. Today, that number has increased to 70 years. In China in 1950, a child who was born was expected to live for the age of 40. And that number in China is 77 today. And therefore, you see that a large chunk of the people who've been lifted out of poverty around the world have come from India and China. In fact, there was a UN report, I think late last year, which said that in just the last 15 years, we have lifted 415 million people out of poverty, which for context is more than the entire population, about the size of the entire population of the European Union. And there was a report, I think, from Brookings about 3 weeks back, which said that India today has eliminated absolute poverty, extreme poverty in our in the country. This has been possible because of economic growth. It sounds simple, but it needs to be reiterated. That the lives of our citizens becomes better when the country does well economically. We've been struggling with issues of poverty since independence. But why is it that only in the last 30 years we've made the biggest jumps in socioeconomic indicators, in human development indicators? Because in the last 3 or 4 decades, we've seen the highest growth levels in the country. And so economic growth, economic prosperity translates into better lives for citizens of our country. And so we sometimes don't make that link. It's sometimes like stating the obvious, but it still needs to be made. The point still needs to be made that if we don't grow economically, the lives of our people, our efforts to eliminate poverty will not be very successful. We know that in the last 30 years, since 1991 reforms, we've shown some very high levels of economic growth, and that extra revenue which this growth has generated has transformed not just the economy, but also the lives of the people. Luxuries, for example, in the last 40 years, when we've seen this epoch of economic growth, luxuries have become necessities. Bank accounts, mobile phones, non-cash transactions, taking a flight, going abroad for vacation and studies. All of these things used to be luxuries till very recently. I remember the first time I took a flight, I think about 25 years back, my mother called up everyone in the family to let them know that we are taking a flight. It used to be a sign of prestige. It used to be a sign of having arrived in life. People would not take off the baggage tags from their luggages long after they would come back from vacation, because it was a way of signaling that you've taken a flight. I still remember that going to a bank used to be a big deal for my grandparents. You would dress up, put on good clothes, take half day off from work, because going to a bank used to be a big deal. My mother, last February, when my mother celebrated her 60th birthday, me and my brother opened a bank account for her, because the first time she had a bank account in her life. Till date, she thinks that we've scammed her. We've not actually given her a birthday gift, because we opened a bank account for her on a Sunday evening, sitting at our home within about half an hour. And this idea that you can do banking transactions in the comfort of your house on a weekend evening was so alien to her that she still refuses to believe that it's a legit account with which she can do financial transactions. So, like I keep saying, these are things that we take for granted, but these are big changes that have happened in the life of our country. That luxuries have now become necessities. When I was in 10th grade, I used to study in Cathedral here. We used to have one mobile phone in the house, which belonged to my father, on which you'd be allowed to play that snakes game for about half an hour when he was in a good mood. Right? Again, because mobile phones used to be a luxury, and today they are a necessity. So, and all of these things that we've spoken about, bank accounts, traveling abroad, mobile phones, all of them have now become necessities because of the economic change that our country has experienced in the last 40 years. And so when the economy does well, the lives of people changes, and which is why in the last 40 years, we've been able to lift 415 million people out of poverty in this country. This has happened. The growth that we are experiencing today has happened because of a sustained focus and unprecedented attention by the government towards building physical, digital, and fiscal infrastructure. A concerted effort has gone into building these 3 sets of infrastructure by governments over the last 15, 20 years. Right? We now produce as a country enough food to feed our people, enough medicines to heal our people. We produce enough electricity to meet the national demand, and we are working very quickly to ensure that every family has a house with a functional toilet, clean drinking water, and access to an all-weather road. Right? Again, things that we today take for granted, but even in 2 generations back, these things are not true. We did not have enough food to feed our people. We did not have enough medicines to provide our people. And an electricity connection used to be a luxury for a house. So the fact that these things are now done and dusted with tells you about the progress we've made over the last 40 years. Just as the life of people has changed in the process of this economic transformation that I'm talking about over the last 15 years, even the nature of our economy has changed. The chief economist of IMF, Geeta Gopinath, said in September last year that India is now contributing about 15% to the world GDP, up from 4% in 1947 when we got independence. But what was left unsaid by Geeta Gopinath was how open we have become to the world in the process of this economic transformation. The share of exports to GDP in India is today already higher than the share of exports to GDP for China. Even the share of FDI inflows, the share of foreign investment in India's GDP, is much more than China and much more than the global middle income country average. And which tells you that we've become as a country and as an economy more open to engaging with the world in the process of this transformation. This economic openness is reflected in the increasing breadth and intensity of our political engagements with countries around the world. You see, suddenly there is there's a new energy in our foreign policy outreach. We are now meeting more frequently and we are having greater engagements with all countries around the world. And that is because all countries are more interested in India today, thanks to the economic progress that we are experiencing. And as a good marker of this increased frequency and intensity of our global engagements was the G20, which happened last year, which tells you that there is suddenly greater interest in engaging with India and especially with the Indian economy. We are today a country with a per capita income of $2,500, which is about 2 lakhs per year, which is in the range of lower middle income country. Depending on which your favorite consulting firm is, India's per capita income will be anywhere between $15,000 according to EY to about $26,000 USD according to PwC. Even this lower threshold of $15,000 per capita income in the next 25 years will make us a $26 trillion economy. To give you context, we are today sitting on 4 trillion. So what we've done for the previous 75 years is go from 0 to 4 trillion. Even the worst case scenario for the next 25 years says that we will go from 4 to about $25 trillion, which is an extraordinary amount of wealth which is going to be generated. Right? The speed and scale of the rise of a non-Western democracy will also have global implications. On one hand, it will increase our capabilities and our ambitions to contribute towards global public goods, but we will also be very sensitive to any internal or external factor that jeopardizes our journey to become a developed country by 2047. So India's rise will not just have consequences for our citizens, it will also have consequences for the entire world. And therefore, I keep saying that the next 25 years is a bit like the second half of a chessboard. We are going to see a lot of turbulence, a lot of transformation in technology, politics, economy, society, much more than what we've seen in the previous 75 years. And because the world is undergoing an economic and consequent political rebalancing, we have to be on our guard and we have to ensure that this trajectory which we are on is not sidetracked. And again, it's a cliche to say that disruption is happening, but we don't understand the full magnitude and second-order effects of these multiple disruptions that India and the world is experiencing today. In our part of the world, in South Asia, this age of near constant discontinuity started with the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And then since then, the COVID crisis, the Ukraine crisis, the West Asian crisis have become markers of this new turbulent epoch in world politics. No one can predict the exact contours of what this next equilibrium will look like at the end of the current flux and the current turbulence. But there are certain trend lines which are clear. And I want to talk about 3 of these trend lines in my remarks to give you a sense of what the world will look like in the next 25 years. The first is the rise of Asia and specifically cities within Asia. One of my favorite data points to talk about with audiences, especially when I talk to foreign investors who come and meet us, is the changing composition of Fortune 500 companies. Those of us, I'm sure we are all aware of the Fortune 500 companies. These are the biggest companies in the world. I once, in my free time, made a table of how many of these top 500 companies, what was the nationality of these 500 companies in the year 2000, and what is the nationality of these companies, the top 500 companies in the world in 2023. And I don't have the slides here, but I just want to read out to you these data points. In 2000, out of the top 500 companies in the world, 179 belong to United States, 107 belong to Japan, 40 belong to UK, 37 belong to France. China had 10 companies in Fortune 500, and India had just one. I think it was Coal India or Indian Oil, one of these. This was the only company we had in the Fortune 500 in the year 2000. Do you know what these numbers look like today in 2023? From 179, today only 136 companies belong to United States in the top 500. From 107 companies in the Fortune 500, today Japan has just 41. From 40 in the top 500, UK today has just 15. France has just 31 from 37 in the year 2000. India has done well. From 1, we today have 8 companies in the Fortune 500. Do you know how many companies in the top 500 companies, Fortune 500, belong to China? They had 10 in the year 2000. Today they have 142. From 10 companies in Fortune 500 to 142 today. And if you want one data point on what's happening in the world, it is this. This explains a lot of the turbulence, chaos that we're experiencing in the world. So while 1 to 8 looks great on a standalone basis, it is nothing compared to going from 10 to 142. So while we've done well, if you benchmark it to a previous performance, if you compare it to our peers, we still have a lot of way to go. And which leads me to a second point that I wanted to impress upon you, is that there is a lot of blame that happens on wealth creators today. A lot of politicians, civil society activists like to blame our wealth creators for the problems that our countries experience. I actually think, no, we don't need to harass and to trouble and to look down upon wealth creators, entrepreneurs. In fact, if anything, we need 15, 20 Ambanis and Adanis in the country today to take us to where we have to be able to compete with countries like China. So it's not nice to look down upon, to harass and to insult and demean wealth creators. Wealth creators are key to the country's economic progress, and when the country progresses, the lives of the people change, something that we've already spoken about. So if anything, we need more such wealth creators in the country over the next 25 years to be able to match up to China's performance on the Fortune 500 list. But I also talked about the rise of cities globally. So very interestingly, about 50%, Robin mentioned that the total GDP of the world is about 105 trillion today. Surprisingly, 50% of this total GDP of the world is housed in just about 440 cities. 440 cities around the world are creating about 50% of the total economic value around the world. So what we're seeing today is a simultaneous industrial and an urban revolution, something which happened 300 years back during the previous industrial revolution. And so, just to put numbers to this phenomena, in 1960, about 35% of the total global population lived in cities. Today, about 55% of the global population lives in cities. And by 2050, about 70% of the total global population will be living in cities, which is an exact reversal of the numbers from 1960. The increased concentration of people and prosperity in cities will also have societal implications. So for example, the number of marriages that were happening in OECD countries, the richest countries in the world, was about 8 per a population of 1,000 in the year 1970. Today, that number has gone down to 5 for 1,000 population. Single income and single person households today are the fastest growing profile around the world in this decade. And while about 9% of households are single person households today, in Asia, 31% of households in Europe are single person households. So this is just one example of how simultaneous urbanization and industrialization is going to have impact not just on our economy, but also on our society. The other sort of interesting point is the concentration of middle classes. And as again, consultants and analysts like to say, about 66% of the world's middle class is going to be in Asia. So the rise of Asia and specifically cities within Asia is going to be an important trend line for the next 25 years. The second trend line about what the world will look like is that we are going to enter into an age of accelerated technological change, which ties into the point about the need to focus on R&D as a country. And that's just sort of technological change is a catch-all term for a lot of sort of phenomena and technologies and companies that are changing our lives. But I want to focus on three aspects of this accelerated technological change. The first is the combination of increased connectivity, increased processing power, and increased data revolution, which means that today more people now have access to the more powerful devices, and using these devices, they can access unlimited information. So the combination of more people having powerful devices through which they can access unlimited information means that their behavior as a citizen and their behavior as a consumer is rapidly changing. So you're seeing rapid changes, political changes, changes in the fortunes of companies thanks to this combination of increased connectivity, processing power, and data revolution. The second sort of element of this age of accelerated technological change that we're living in is the exponential adoption on the demand side of new technologies and devices, which is leading to an exponential innovation by tech companies in terms of generating products and services for its customers. So for example, do you know how long it took telephone to touch 50 million users? 50 million users. It took telephone 50 years to touch 50 million users. Radio took 10 years. Skype took 2 years. The game Angry Birds took 35 days. And Pokemon Go took just 19 days to touch 50 million users. See, accelerated rate of technological change. I was looking at another study on how long it took for internet to touch 100 million users. It took 7 years for the internet to touch 100 million users. Threads, which is this new Twitter rival that was launched by Facebook. Do you know how long it took them to touch 100 million users? 5 days. So again, what is social media doing? How is it further accelerating these technological trends? So we live in an age of accelerated technological change. And final element of this age that I want to flag off is the sudden jump in cross-border digital flows. I mean, the amount of data that is being exchanged between countries today was nearly almost non-existent just 3 decades ago. And today, they are contributing more towards the economy than flow of physical goods, which took centuries to build. That flow of physical goods took centuries to build, and digital flows was non-existent 3 decades back. And yet today, digital flows between countries are having a far bigger impact on the global economy than the physical flow of goods. And the last sort of trend line that I want to flag off is the demographic change that the world will experience in the next 25 years. Global population is growing, aging, migrating, and urbanizing. The planet's population is plateauing in most parts of the world. Already, about 2/3 of the world's population lives in countries where the population is below the replacement rate. The replacement rate for population is about 2.1. And almost 60% of the population lives in countries which is below the replacement rate of 2.1, which means that the workforce available around the world is increasingly shrinking, which is why you see there is a greater focus on improving productivity across industries. The other element of this is that the share of elderly population is increasing around the world, and this elderly population needs insurance, pension, healthcare, and this is putting a lot of pressure on government finances and is responsible for a lot of migration trends that we see around the world. The third element of this demographic change is a generational handover of political, economic, and cultural power from one generation to the millennial generation. Today, those born after 1980, which is what we call millennials, outnumber those that are born earlier. And this is again something very unique, that today millennials have overtaken the previous population around the world. In India alone, there will be 385 million millennials who will head about 80 million households in the next 10 years. India will have the world's largest working age population who are both willing and able to migrate within and outside India in the coming 25 years. 20% of the world's workforce, which is the producer, And 20% of the world's middle class, which is the consumers, will reside in our country. And in 2030, while the global median age will be 41 years, India's median age at the end of this decade will be 10 years less, it's 31 years. So again, we are in a sweet spot which rarely comes in the history of and in the national trajectory of countries. So this is really, when people say this is India's moment, this is India's decade, this is India's century, they're talking about this combination of factors, geopolitical, demographic, technological factors, which has placed us in an advantageous position, which if we take, if we can harness these tailwinds, we can go from being a lower middle income country to a developed country in the next 25 years. And if you ask me to summarize if you have, like, people talk about problem statements. If you ask me to give the problem statement for our country for the next 25 years, it is as follows. This is not my formulation. It's a formulation by one of my colleagues at the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, Lead Commissioner. He says that if in one line you have to summarize what we must focus towards as a country, it is this. How do we become rich before becoming old? Right? As a country, this demographic dividend that we have will not always remain. In about 30, 40 years from now, we will begin to experience the kind of plateauing that China is plateauing today. So we have this window of about 30, 40 years in which to go from a lower middle income country, which we are today, to a developed country. And so how do we become as a country rich before we become old? This needs a lot of, because there are a lot of challenges, despite our good progress, there are a lot of challenges we have to solve for. So our dependence on China, the comparatively low share of manufacturing in our GDP, the technological disruption that is causing loss of jobs in several sectors around the country. These are big challenges that our country is facing. I don't have the time or the inclination to talk about it in greater detail, because this is the forum is not about economic sort of structural flaws in our country. But I do want to flag off the role of R&D in solving these big challenges that we face, which is escaping the middle income trap, reducing our dependence on China, and harnessing the forces of technological disruption. We have to become a leader in the frontier technologies in the world. And we have to be able to have a greater share of the value chain of these frontier technologies. Our R&D, total R&D spending in the world today is about what China used to spend in the year 2000. China was spending about $30 billion in R&D in 2000. We today spend about 15 billion, right? Which is too less compared to what our peer groups stand. Today, China's spending has overtaken Europe and rivals United States. In just 2 decades, from spending about 30 billion in the year 2000, today they spend about $580 billion on R&D, while we are spending just $15 billion on R&D. Right? China, which is the $580 billion that China spends on R&D today, is about 2% of the GDP, while we spend only about 0.7% of our GDP on R&D. The money spent by China on R&D has made it a technological superpower. Yeah. They are not just mastering one technology, but there's an entire set of technologies that the Chinese government has been able to master. If you look at the performance of their universities on global rankings, if you look at the nature of technologies that they've been able to enter as far as contributing to its value chain is concerned, those numbers are stark and very challenging for a country like India. I'll just give you one sort of data point and end my remarks, and also the larger need to focus on R&D as a country if we have to achieve our developmental goals over the next 25 years. Supercomputers, which is one good marker of a country's technological capabilities. In the top 500 supercomputers of the world, do you know how many belong to United States? 128. 128 of the top 500 supercomputers in the world belong to United States. Do you know how many belong to China? 179. And India has just 3 out of the top 500 supercomputers in the world, and none in the top 100. So across technologies and across sectors, you can see this disparity, technological disparity between India and some of our peer groups. We have to pull up our socks and in the next 25 years, make concerted efforts to increase our spending on R&D, spend more money and spend it better to ensure that we become leaders in these frontier technologies. And we are a greater part, we have a greater share in the value chain of the products of these frontier technologies like solar energy, electric vehicles, etc. That to me is at the heart of the problem that we're trying to solve, which is how do we become rich before we become old? Or in other words, how do we become a developed country by the year 2047? Thank you.
Audience, if you have any questions, you can interact with all the chief guests during the break. Because of time constraints, we cannot let you talk now. I now request Dr. V.N. Rajashekaran Pillai sir, Vice Chancellor of Somaya Vidyavihar University, to come up on stage and felicitate Dr. Mishra. Thank you, Dr. Apurva Mishra, for your insights. Our next speaker for the day is Professor Manoj Chowdhury, Vice Chancellor, Gati Shakti University. I invite Professor Manoj Chowdhury on stage. Let me introduce Mr. Manoj Chowdhury, sir, for you. With a distinguished background in academia and industry, Professor Manoj Chowdhury brings a wealth of expertise to the fields of electrical engineering and transportation logistics. His extensive contributions to national missions such as 5G and 6G task force, as well as his role in Semiconductor Laboratory SCL, highlight his commitment to technological advancement at the highest levels of governance. Prior to his tenure in academia, Professor Chowdhury held leadership positions in top technology companies where he spearheaded groundbreaking research and development in semiconductor chip design and wireless communication. His contributions to standard development and intellectual property rights have earned him international recognition and numerous accolades, including several patents and prestigious awards. We are privileged to have Manoj Chowdhury with us today to speak on the topic, Research and Development-Driven Transformation, a cornerstone to MSME. Over to you, sir.
Can I have a slide changer in the slides, please? Can I have slide changer? Yeah, I am looking for slide changer.
Yes, sir, you can just say next, they'll change it.
I need control myself. Okay. Thank you. Good morning. After two wonderful sessions that we listened to, Apurva ji and before that Robin ji, my goal is to draw upon my prior experience and talk maybe something practical on what we really need to do on the topic of R&D, industry, academia. I have worked in industry for 21 years and in academia with IIT Jodhpur, where currently I am on leave from, and setting up the India's only university in the transportation and logistics sector that was created by the Parliament of India in 2022. We have talked just now, Apurva talked, for Viksit Bharat, how we are very well positioned and what all we need to do. I just want to talk one thing, and also before that Robinji talked one thing about AI and the role. I firmly believe that human ingenuity cannot make any system that human ingenuity cannot break. Therefore, all these discussion points, artificial intelligence will take over this or that, this is all what we are creating. And I firmly believe it is humans that will decide how the technology has to be used, how it has to be progressed. First of all, for any country to be developed, or at least look developed, you go to any country, have a look at their railways, their aviation, their airports, their roads, and you can tell at a glance if country is developed or not developed. The first very, very important parameter. So maybe 1 or 2 minutes only I will spend on the reason why this university was created. As was talked about, today India's economy size is $4.1 trillion. And however, the difficulty that we have is in terms of our infrastructure development. So far, whether railways, new lines were getting constructed, roads were being laid, it is very common that there were cost overruns, there were schedule overruns. Ultimately, who pays? We as the taxpayer pay, because if there is more cost, project is getting delayed, then taxpayer end up paying more. Taxpayer is being denied the service legitimately for the duration when it should have been available, right? So both ways is the taxpayer which gets hurt. In order that our infrastructure is developed in an integrated manner, PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan was launched. 3 main things happened. 13th October 2021, PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan was launched. Why it is so important? The size of the plan itself is $1.2 trillion. Single largest national master plan launched after independence. Roughly around 30% of India's GDP size. That is, when we make our new rail lines, new airports, when we modernize our ports, how can we do in an integrated, holistic manner? By building synergies for the development is the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. Further, the cost of logistics in India has always been estimated to be quite high. Roughly, there were different estimations, roughly 13-14% of the cost of logistics. Why it is important to us? It is important because developed countries have a cost of logistics around 6% of GDP. We had around 13-14% of GDP. That means of the $4 trillion economy, around 8% is perhaps a wasteful expenditure that we can eliminate if we have a superior infrastructure system and good logistics. How does it impact us as a person? It impacts because if cost of moving coal from where it is mined to take it to the thermal power stations where it is used, if that is high, we as consumers end up paying more per unit electricity charge. Similarly, as we are becoming developed country, there is a lot more reliance on increasing our exports. If the things that we are making and manufacturing in India and they were to be exported, and we all know that 90% of the traffic is through maritime route, if the cost of moving those goods from hinterland to the nearest port, whether Mumbai port, JNPT, wherever, if the cost is high, our export competitiveness is significantly hit. And if it is hit, then our portion in the world trade is hit. And that is where the cost of logistics is a game changer. It's a very, very, very important. So infrastructure creation and utilizing that infrastructure to improve the logistics efficiency. When these two things are done, the approach is, instead of working in silos, in an interdependent world, how do we work together? How the governments, different ministries can work together? That is the essence of Gati Shakti plan. When you have $1.2 trillion now to spend on building new infrastructure, where will the manpower come from? Do we have specialized manpower, or are we saying that जो चल रहा है उसी को ट्रेन करते रहेंगे, right? In order for the talented and specialized manpower for these sectors is why Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya was created. So the central government took 3 steps. One is PM Gati Shakti plan in 2021, Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya in 2022, and logistics policy in 2022 to make sure that all these 3 angles are covered. I am not going to read more about this, except saying that we are running some very unique programs, focusing currently on rail engineering and starting new programs in aviation and shipping and so on. That's all about university. Now I move forward. Some reflections, right? How world has changed. I know Apurva talked about it. I want to talk maybe in a different manner. Many of us, maybe not students, but all those who have seen the mobile phones coming to India first time, maybe 2000, 2001 or 2, most likely would have bought a mobile phone from Nokia or Motorola. Again, I am not talking company specific, I am trying to make a point. In 2000, Nokia, Motorola had almost a duopoly over the market with 85% market share. There was no Apple that time, there was no Samsung or others, right? By 2012, Motorola had disappeared. Nokia had gone down significantly. Apple had already come in 2007-8. Samsung had come with Galaxy series phones. Point I am trying to make here is that despite being world's largest companies, despite having all the market share, all the R&D prowess, inability to act in time for a changing technological order where 3G was about to come and data became the king, and we all are today everything today we call is smart, smartphone, smart TV, smart city. That smart is because of data. In a data world that was approaching, 2 biggest companies which were ruling that time failed to keep pace and got out of the market. Today, it's difficult to find a Nokia or Motorola phone in the market. This is the world, how it has changed. So, if you reflect, was it failure to see what was coming, or was it being complacent, or, by the way, they all started making 3G phone, first ones to start making, but in between decided that perhaps the time is not right, perhaps humanity is not ready, and therefore things got delayed, and once Apple's iPhone came and Galaxy phone came, and the result is for all to see. I want to quickly change to 21st century, what it means to us. We are talking about innovation, we are talking about R&D. First, we have to understand 21st century, briefly Apurva mentioned. Every single thing that we are doing today, whether use of social media by Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagrams, is 21st century. We are only 24th year into the century. Any streaming video we see, Netflix, YouTube, 21st century. Any ride-sharing app we are today using to go home or come to office or Uber, Ola, everything 21st century. Any online shopping we do, Amazon, 21st century. Every single thing you see here, not only product is 21st century, the company itself, except Google 1997, is born in 21st century. Such is the rate of technology development, and even faster is the rate of technology deployment. Moment a technology is made, within 2 years it is in the hands of the consumers, as Apurva talked. What that means to us, that means that unless we are able to keep pace with this 21st century, we can say Bharat ki sadi hai, will not happen. It will happen only if we are into that world. Another thing that you will notice, all of these companies that I listed here are knowledge-based companies. That means they created new knowledge. They had a new technology, a differentiated technology, which created value, and therefore that company became big and so on. Whichever country had these knowledge-based companies, whichever country had these knowledge-based companies is the country that had the largest economy. Therefore, the economy today is a knowledge-based economy. If India have to become from 4.1 to what, 40 maybe, by 2047, it has to happen by laying emphasis on knowledge-based economy. And that is why today's topic of R&D, which creates new knowledge, which creates new product, is extremely important. 4 things I'll just very quickly say, these are understanding, right? Netflix, we don't want to get into the story of how it was created, but one key point I want to highlight is that every company in the world succeeded because of new knowledge, because of innovation, and a larger desire to serve humanity as a customer base. When Netflix owner went to return his DVD and he got late, and he had to pay 1 more day of rental charge that we were all buying DVDs, that time he decided to create this. Whole business model innovation changed the world today. DVDs are out of the market as a result. Wikipedia, we were looking for knowledge all around. In Britannica Encyclopedia, Wikipedia, with people coming together, collaborative manner to create new knowledge as a repository. Today, the first source of information is Wikipedia. Because we looked humanity as a customer base. Another disruptive innovation. Airbnb, another disruptive innovation. Who thought that all the properties that already exist can be utilized in this manner? Because some person, the owner, could not book the accommodation at the right price in right time. Again, humanity as the customer base. Another point I want to make, India story. As we know, low-cost aviation started in India with Air Deccan, way back in 2001-2 time frame with 500 rupees aircraft. We can say they innovated low-cost aviation in India. But where are they in the market today? Don't exist. Indigo entered 4-5 years down the line. Today has 65% market share. So it is not merely having an idea, because we are talking of MSME context, we are talking R&D, it is not an idea that is important. Of course it is important to start and do something. It is the tenacity and perseverance that is important. That how do you continue that journey, and that is how you become. So first mover advantage does not always remain with you unless you really and continuously and sustainably able to work on that. It's very important for R&D. Many a times, as researchers, we have an idea, we say only we have. Every day in newspapers you will see this institute, this professor, this IIT, this IIM, this university did some research, first time we are doing, and 5 years down the line check that did not go anywhere else. So first mover has no meaning unless we are able to take to a logical conclusion. Similarly, companies that were known for their undying focus on quality, like Toyota, also had to face vehicle recalls. Companies that put a lot of emphasis on process, like GE, had to be split for business reasons. So innovation, unless innovation you can do at every point of time, you are very likely to be sidelined. It had happened to big companies, same can happen to anyone. I am now changing track. I talked about 21st century, and I told that if India were to become 35 trillion or 40 trillion, it has to be knowledge-based economy. And that is when our Honorable Prime Minister says that today we have 1,25,000 registered startups, which are in 600 different districts, is what shows the innovation potential in the journey of India. I have some 2 key beliefs, just want to highlight. That everybody has a strength and we have to focus on that. On the left-hand side, that if do not judge a fish by its ability to climb the tree. And similarly, that we have to constantly read. Literacy, we might have achieved fully literate or 90% literacy, but literacy in 21st century is, we have to read every day. As Toffler said, illiterates of the 21st century are not those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And therefore, we have to all the time focus on that. Now, so when we talk about R&D, we talk about R&D, industry, academia. Typically, while I was in industry for 21 years, I made 10 different collaborations with different IITs or ISC. When I am in academia, I have done almost equal or more number. And therefore, I have maybe You can allow me to have some view on what is working, what is not working. Firstly, the purpose for a research problem that is defined. If the purpose is only to publish some papers and get a promotion, we are actually lost the game already. But then there is no meaningful R&D that is possible. If the purpose is a meaningful way to serve humanity with an entrepreneurial mindset that Rubinji talked about in the morning, irrespective of whether academician, whether the MSME sector, the purpose has to be this. The purpose cannot be I will make money. That can be an outcome. But the purpose has to be to do something meaningful. Problem. Mostly in our academics, perhaps, we look, how do we identify problem? We identify problem by reading lot of literature review and seeing their conclusions, future scope of work. किसी और ने क्या बोला है कि what is to be done, and then we think this is a problem, we start working. Defining a problem itself is an important task. Are we training our people, students, on how to define a problem which is relevant to our society? How can we tie, currently though we are spending maybe 0.6% of GDP in R&D, right? But lot more focus in India on R&D. We have now 10,000 crore AI mission, we have green hydrogen mission, we have quantum mission. All new technology areas, government of India is actually working in a mission mode. So funding is actually not an issue if we have a right proposal. The question is of a right proposal with the right outcome. People, already I think the human resources, Rubinji talked. We are in an era of interdependence world. Today, no country is self-sufficient, no company is self-sufficient, and therefore have to collaborate more. One problem that I have seen in industry-academia collaboration is so far, industry always thinks that academia को सिर्फ पैसा चाहिए. हमारे यहाँ lab setup कर दो, हमारे यहाँ कुछ कर दो, and when they do, there is a feeling that maybe उनसे we will hire some people from there, but there is not a big expectation. It is not that industry-academia collaboration happens because academia will solve the real world problems for industry, and therefore industry-academia collaboration does not happen. This is a giver-taker approach. That is, industry will give, a university will take. It is true that on its own academia cannot solve a problem. For example, you ask any academic person, you make a fast chip for mobile phone. Most likely, he will make an algorithm to do that. You can trust they will do. But industry, what industry will say is that that chip has to be put into a mobile phone which will not have a battery more than 5,000 milliampere hour, and battery cannot be recharged every now and then, and therefore there are practical constraints. Academia, while doing academic research, if they do not consider practical real-world constraints, that research will never ever go into any product, any system, anywhere. For that to happen, industry and academia have to move to a co-creator, co-developer mindset. When I say co-create, that means that if an industry is setting up a center of excellence in a university, they also need to think not only what problems to be solved, but also be ready to deploy some of their people to work along with the best academic. Only then some of the work done in the academic institutions can actually go to the field and can be used in industry. Otherwise, it will never ever happen, because you ask something, you will get something, and then you will say it cannot be used. This is very important mindset shift. From a giver-taker model between industry and academia, it has to move to a co-developer, co-creator mindset. From a startup sector, I know we are talking about manufacturing, semiconductor, electronic, good, right? Scaling up operations is difficult, it is important, it requires tremendous operational efficiency, it requires tremendous capital investment, but to make the first product, to make the first wheel, so that we can make millions of them, that is 0 to 1 journey. That is also very important. That is where a lot of government emphasis is today on startup. How do we create something new? That is where particularly industry, startups and universities should create center of excellence for creating that product, for that idea, not for only funding a lab that, okay, company X funded this lab. That is just a physical investment. The investment has to happen technologically and in terms of resources. how to do it? Today we are living in a winner takes it all world. That is a paradigm. What that means is that in every area, there are only 2 or 3 big companies and then there is a crowd. Every area. In mobile phone, you will see 2 big companies and then there is a crowd. In search engines, you might have seen earlier being Yahoo, who not. Today there may be only 1 or 2, then there is a crowd. Whichever area you take, 2 or 3 companies. Therefore, we cannot do everything on our own. We have to actually have a select and focus strategy. If every university says, I will do this, everybody does the same thing. Everybody takes the same grant from DST or from whichever funding source, they will get limited grant. They all will do minuscule, small work, some papers to be published or something, and that's it. So unless there is a select and focus strategy, even from the funding agency or from a university or institute, that I will focus only on this 2 or 3, 4 areas, that's it. It cannot be, we cannot do everything by everybody. That is very important. Technology sensing, that is ability to see what is happening around us and take the right step. We have to do something all the time. Incremental innovation is as important as disruptive innovation. Not every innovation will be disruptive, and therefore, incremental innovation will enable our businesses to sustain. Disruptive innovation can allow newer companies to form, but we also have to live today in order to see a better future tomorrow. We cannot only think about future, ignoring today. For researchers, I always say that don't tell that your output is so many number of papers or this thing. You show me what is the outcome of your work. So unless there is outcome, you have just piece of paper keeping in a library. It's good, important. We salute your work, but that work cannot be used. My understanding of the MSME sector, I have been involved in 3 or 4, I just very quickly tell. In Department of Telecom, we had a scheme called Digital Communication Innovation Square. I happen to be co-chair of that scheme. One of the approach that was followed is that smaller companies need to be encouraged, but that encouragement is not in isolation. They have to be encouraged to form ecosystem and partnerships so that whatever they develop is used. Otherwise, they will develop something, but in business point of view, it cannot be sold anywhere because it is not compatible to anyone. So, in Digital Communication Innovation Square, a consortium-based approach was encouraged. As a result, these are the number of the startups that actually got funding. Not only funding is one thing, but after that periodic monitoring of how that MSME is progressing further. Today we have almost 1/3 of the GDP contributing MSME. We have more than maybe 12 crore people working in that. How do we encourage that? How number of patents filed from MSME sector can be increased? This is just one of the example. The point again I am trying to highlight here is that do not operate in silo. Unless even MSMEs form a collaboration model with the right nearby academic institute or ecosystem partnership with who will take the product once you make, they will not likely succeed. If we have not defined our customer, then we cannot say our product is defined, because product is as per customer specification. Therefore, we have to, all MSME necessarily have to understand who is the customer and work with the customer. Similarly, another scheme in telecom technology, I again am involved in this, it is called Telecom Technology Development Fund. One of the thing that is highlighted by the government here is, in the first phase, we gave around 500 crore funding, it's large funding. Consortium-based approach, academic institution plus industry have to come forward and make a collaborative proposal, and then the funding can be given. No academic institution can get a funding just by making a proposal, because we know that research will not go anywhere other than papers or some conference and so on. Another example, मैं ऐसा इसलिए कह रहा हूं कि this shows कि भारत बदल रहा है. In my last slide, we are all in a new journey, and I believe that if we want something which we never had, then we have to do some things which we never did. Last 1 minute, I still want to highlight something that we are trying to do, is a city-based approach. In a city, Mumbai तो बहुत बड़ी city है, छोटा city, just one example, we are in Vadodara. Vadodara has, so this is what we have proposed, Vadodara City Knowledge Innovation Cluster. Vadodara has large number of industries, automotive industries, electronic component industries, fertilizer industry, petrochemical industry, there is Alembic, Zydus pharma industry, there is educational institutions. How do we cross leverage learnings from one to other? It is possible. Somaiya University has a lot of knowledge. It is possible we might also have a lot of knowledge, but when we work together from one sector's learning, we can, and this is something that we have to form. This is not something that may require money. It requires more an intent, an attempt to collaborate and to learn from each other is something that we can do. We do not need government's intervention and focus to do this, but we ourselves can do this. Last slide. Logic will take you from A to B. Imagination can take you anywhere. MSME, R&D is all about imagination, and it is all about trying to build synergy. Gati Shakti plan is all about building synergy, and we really want to make sure that Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya establishes synergies with all of the industry, all stakeholders, and move ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the enlightening discourse. I request Professor Mohan B. Rao to felicitate Professor Manoj Chaudhary. Our next speaker is Swami Swatmananda of Chinmaya Mission. I invite you on stage for the keynote address on Synergy for Self-Reliance. Let me introduce Swami Swatmananda for you. Swami Swatmananda serves at Chinmaya Mission, Mumbai after completing the Vedanta course at Sandipani Sadhanalaya, Mumbai. He expounds the philosophy of Advaita through talks, camps, meditation, retreats, etc. on the Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. He uses theatre, plays, treks, outdoor experiential learning, music, etc. to inspire youth. He also takes the Youth Empowerment Program, a value-based leadership program for youth who want to serve the nation and culture. He has written and directed 2 theatrical performances, Adrishya, Quest for the Unseen, based on Saraswati civilization and developed India, and a play based on the Bhagavad Gita titled Just Like That. Over to you, sir.
Namaste, Hari Om to one and all. It was nice to listen to so many esteemed speakers about making India self-reliant technologically. I had a technology background earlier in software programming and computers, and my research project at that time was on artificial intelligence, but that was now 25 years ago. I thank Siddharth and Bharat Tech Foundation and Somaiya Vidyavihar University for this wonderful opportunity. I know that we have passed quite a bit of time, so I will really keep it short. Since this is a trio conclave, I wanted to start with 3 equations. First one is action minus vision is equal to division. When we do action but there is no higher vision, there is no vision of collaboration, etc., it only creates silos and it only creates more and more divisions. Vision minus action is equal to imagination. Great vision may be there, but we don't manifest it in action. It doesn't create ground level changes. It does not get implemented. Then it only remains as an imagination. Vision plus action is equal to transformation. So when there is a right vision and then we work hard to come together, implement it, that makes the whole division, makes the whole transformation happen. And so on these 3 aspects I wanted to share: vision, emotion and action, a trio conclave. So
In spiritual science, we say we have three equipment. One is the intellect, one is the mind, which is a seat of emotions, and one is the body through which we act. So at all the three levels, what is it that we can do to make Bharat self-reliant technologically? So first aspect is the vision aspect, that what is the vision that we have when we say Vikasit Bharat 2047? What is the vision that we want India to achieve when we say self-reliant? So vision must become more and more clearer, and yes, we may be in a VUCA world and it may not be very easy to predict exactly what will be the vision, what will the whole world be, even another 10 years, 15 years down the line. But as much as we are able to make that vision clearer and clearer, it will become easier for us to implement. So whatever markers we can have. So how do we look at ourselves? Vision aspect is that. How do we look at ourselves as a country? How do we look at ourselves as individuals? Both are very, very crucial. So as youth, if one looks at oneself only as job seeker, or am I looking at myself also as a job creator, as an innovator? As a country, what do we look ourselves up as? See, when we say about Bharat, many times, suppose I ask you, what is the first word that comes to your mind, or a picture that comes to your mind when we say Bharat? What would you say? Quick. Focus towards Lord Surya, worships energy, okay? Civilizational? Nation, yes, wonderful. Cultural diversity, Bharat Mata, Mahabharat. You see, even here, when we are sitting, no doubt what you said, all of you, is wonderful. No doubt Bharat has that cultural diversity and anchoring in knowledge and spirituality and worship of the sun and many of those things. But do we not look at ourselves also as scientific and technological? Very few people think that way actually. They always think science means West, spirituality means Bharat. And now today we are moving away from spirituality in terms of the young people, many of them thinking that no, I don't need this and I need to develop more scientifically, and science versus spirituality debates happen in our schools, where unfortunately that happens in our country. In our country there is science and spirituality amalgamation. Science versus spirituality is not a debate for our country, it is a debate because of the West, because they have a different approach of spirituality. Here science and spirituality have always gone together. But our vision, my point was that our vision is still segregated from science, technology. For that it is the West. Few of us, when we are reminded or when we are doing that kind of a work, then we think, oh yes, we are also technologically developed. But so many things we have done in the last 50 years, which was not so easy to achieve, and I mean more than 50 years. The idea here is that how do I look at myself? During COVID time, when so many challenges were there and people were going through difficulties and death and all that was happening, nobody believed us that Covaxin could be made, but that's a fantastic example of how industry and the academia, research, everybody, scientific community have come together and delivered so many people out of this massive challenge. Today we are doing so much in the defense sector. We were the second largest importer of the arms and ammunition, etc. And today we are doing so much of export. Solar energy, we are doing so much of leading work. But in spite of all that, what is our vision? That is the first aspect I wanted to highlight, that the vision that we have should be very clear, that no doubt we have cultural diversity, we have spiritual knowledge, we have civilizational depth, etc. But we are also a scientific nation. And we are thinking, we should be able to think ahead. So in vision, again, I wanted to explain three aspects: past, present, and future. What do we know about our past? If we go deep into our past, Bharat has always been the innovator. We have not been catching up game only all the time. One of the slides that Manojji showed was so many of those companies, the Google and Facebook and Netflix and all of them. All of them are companies abroad. And one is doing the catching up game, okay, how can we create something like this, or how can we, produce something like the Indian Netflix, which has a indie content or which has, the indie type of a social media platform, when will we step into the next level where we say it is what we create, the world has to follow, which is what Bharat was doing earlier. You look at our temples, look at our music, dance, literature, art, what level of depth. So if we go back into our past that we have been innovators, industrial evolution changed a few things for us. And there also we have funded the industrial evolution of Europe, because $45 trillion went from here. And the idea is, in the march of civilization, 200 years, 300 years is a small time. Maybe we went down till 18th century, we were contributing 33% of the world GDP, in spite of all the invasions and attacks and all those things that have happened to Bharat. Still we were contributing that much. 200-300 years is a small time in the whole history, in the march of civilizations. We are again looking up and doing so many things. So what is our past? How glorious was it? From there we derive inspiration. What are our achievements here in the present? How do we look at ourselves that we are also a nation anchored in science as well as spirituality? And how do we look at ourselves in the future? What is the future technology that is going to be? How we can be the generators of that future technology? Those are aspects that we must have in the vision aspect. And so R&D, academia, industry needs to come together to design that. Today we are saying artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., and data sciences. So our youngsters are getting into all that, semiconductors, and we are setting up production of semiconductors in this country. Again, I would say we are doing the catching up game. Maybe it will take us some time, but we will get there when we say China has achieved this much and India is still here and we need to match to the level China is. But the idea is, if the vision becomes clearer, that this is what we can be, what is the new disruptive thing that we can create, then it will happen, it will start happening. And yes, the startup culture and many unicorns that Bharat is producing is a step in that direction, but we need to do more on that. So Bharat itself means the land of light and knowledge. Bha is the land of, Bha means light, effulgence, knowledge, and Ratha means the people who revel in that. So when Manojji said that knowledge-based economy, we were a knowledge-based economy in some ways earlier. We have to come back to that again here. We are the people who revel in knowledge. When we say that Asatoma Sadgamaya, we worship light, we worship knowledge. One lady there, she said, we worship Surya. Surya is the sun. For us, it is the symbol of life, light, love, knowledge, everything. And so, vision aspect is that. Emotion aspect is that how, our country, one of the beautiful aspects of our Vedic culture was yajna. Yajna means, the moment we say yajna, what comes to our mind? The fire ritual is there, people are sitting around and doing swaha, indraya swaha, idam namama, and all that. And those are outdated times now, we don't do any more yajnas. But do you know, so much of science has developed to make that yajna perfected. If you see the ancient sciences, they all have developed so that the knowledge of mathematics, chemistry, even the environment, many things have come together to make that yajna happen very well. And yajna actually means cooperative effort. For a selfless cause, for a higher purpose, when everyone comes together, works together, syncing their differences, the results which are achieved are shared by everyone. So suppose one says that, okay, we are doing this yajna for rains to happen. Then everybody wants that to happen. They come together, each one bringing what best they can, and with a single common goal, with a sense of unity, they work together. Whether they like each other or they may have certain differences, doesn't matter, but they work together in collaboration for that higher purpose, and when the rains come, the results are shared by all. Same way, here, so much of collaboration is required between all the various aspects. Here we are having three aspects of R&D and academia and the industry. Working together is one of the things that we have to develop as a skill. No matter how much intelligence develops of artificial intelligence, etc., this will still remain a skill that is necessary of how to collaborate together, how to work together, how to be, having that leadership qualities and be able to take people together. So the emotion aspect is that that how can we come together for that vision that we want to achieve. And in that coming together, 3 points I wanted to share. One aspect is techniques of how to make the mind quiet. Because we are seeing how much pressure is created. Along with technological developments, there is also increase in mental health challenges. So many people going through depression and getting into drugs and getting into many of the psychological challenges, and mental health issues are on the rise. So pressure on one hand keeps increasing, technology can keep increasing. So Swami Chinmayananji, my guru, he used to say that the tragedy of modern life is decreasing happiness amidst increasing comfort. Apurvaji started his session by asking that which is the most happiest country in the world. J.R.D. Tataji, he said so beautifully, he said, I don't want India to be a superpower, I want India to be a happy country. It doesn't mean that he didn't want India to be a superpower, he worked for it his whole life. But the point is, we can't get limited with that. If we become a happy country, the mind when it is quiet, happy, that mind will think innovatively, that mind will think in a disruptive way, it will be able to think for the future. So what are we doing? How can research help? How can academics help to create these techniques and integrate it through education, through various other applications in the daily life, where the mind learns to become quiet, mind learns to become single-pointed. And also the pressures, how the mind is able to deal with, the resilience power one is able to develop. So that is one aspect that where we can, today so many technologies which are available can be used. Earlier you needed different things for meditation. Today you can learn meditation on your own. There are enough apps and there are so many other possibilities, and immersive technologies also are available. So how to use that technology to make the human life better, to make the mind quieter, to have that emotional resilience, one aspect. Second aspect is the regulation of emotions. That is another thing that happens where we don't know how to handle our emotions. One is to make the mind quiet, second is how do we handle the emotion aspect. How can technology become a means where I learn to regulate my emotions? I can understand what am I going through. Many times we don't understand what we are going through, and then actions happen, and then later we regret, oh, I should not have said this, I should not have done this, or why did I do this? I come to know much later. So how do I learn to regulate my emotions so that technology is used not only to create better products and comforts, but technology also is used to ensure that the human being's experience as a person living life becomes more better. And third is definitely the introduction of spiritual knowledge. Using technology, so much research, etc. can also be done. We always quote the Western universities, others saying that this particular spiritual practice, when it is done in this way, this is the result that it is given, and this is being proved. Somebody who got the Nobel Peace Prize for understanding how the body functions in terms of the fasting. So once in a month, if you do complete water fast, then the body will go into a mode called autophagy, where the body cells will eat away the harmful cells and the cancer cells and all that. And 2016, I think that gentleman from Japan, he got that Nobel Peace Prize. Now we will quote that and we will say that, okay, this is what it is, so it has been there in our country also. We have been doing Ekadashika fasting from so long. But again, I'm saying we are catching up only. Our research is not doing any of that to prove that how India has been doing things which have been innovative, and what are the things that we can do which people can then adopt. So in terms of that, if spiritual knowledge is brought in, people have more of anchoring in oneself. Technology can be used for many of those aspects also. So the experience of human being as a individual, and then of course as a whole society, as a nation and the world, can be very different. And last aspect is the action aspect. So when we say in the Gita, yoga karmasu kaushalam. So what is yoga? It is not doing just some physical postures. Yoga is dexterity in action. And what are the skills that we are training our youngsters with? Not only for now, but for the future aspect. So the education, the academia, how is it making the student skill ready as well as future ready. Both are very, very crucial so that the industry has people. So what is going to be there 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line? Can we start educating from now? And we create those type of students who will then be absorbed by the industry and who will then be able to create a difference in the society. And so what are the skills and how the skill training is done? How much is it contemporary and how much is it futuristic? Both very, very crucial to understand that. Second is the accountability. One of the challenges we find is many things get initiated but they don't complete because the accountability is not there, or one has sometimes a chalta hai type of an attitude. And so accountability, that what I am doing, how will it make a difference to my society, to my country, and I am accountable for everything. If that mindset comes, one will also do prompt execution. So skills, accountability and prompt execution, if they can be introduced, and there are many technological ways to do all this. Earlier people used to sign, in that, what is that, attendance register and all that. Now one does this, then came this finger print scanning. Then there is this eye. So there are so many things whereby one creates a certain level of accountability. I'm just giving a certain basic aspect here. But all the three, when we can come together, vision, emotion and action, success is a tribute that life pays to such excellence, and may we all come together to make Bharat self-reliant technologically and achieve our vision of Vikasit Bharat 2047. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swami Swatmananda, for talking about the importance of self-reliance in order to achieve Vikasit Bharat 2047. Now I request Mr. Srinivasan Iyengar sir to come over and felicitate Dr. Swami Swatmananda. The next speaker for the day is Dr. Shri Sudha Vishwanathan. I invite Dr. Shri Sudha Vishwanathan on stage. Let me introduce Dr. Shri Sudha Vishwanathan for you. Dr. Vishwanathan is a former scientist at ISRO. She has transitioned into entrepreneurship with a strong focus on education. Her pioneering work at ISRO encompassed interdisciplinary projects in polymer and electronics, including developments in solar energy and space capsule technology. As the founder and CEO of EduTech for Space, FZ LLC in UAE, she leads initiatives in online education for space technology, astronomy, and robotics. Currently, Dr. Vishwanathan is actively involved in training students at BITS Pilani Dubai campus to build a cube satellite named Mahasat, set for launch in 2025. Additionally, she spearheads Mission Rumi, mobilizing 150 school students from UAE to partake in the world's first mobile launch of a hybrid rocket, Rumi, in August 2024. Dr. Vishwanathan's contributions have earned her prestigious awards, including an honorary doctorate in space science in recognition from esteemed institutions like Hamdan Smart University and the Indian Science Forum. I invite Dr. Shri Sudha Vishwanathan for her talk on the topic, New Age Infrastructure and Industry Academia Collaboration. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. It's an honor to be here. Actually, I thank Bharat Tech and as well as Somaya University for this unique opportunity. Let me put it straight. When Siddharth told me that we were talking because I have volunteered with Siddharth Similar to the vision that when we are in Dubai, we take care that the Indian students, always look at India as in a proud way, and they carry the rich Indian heritage and the belief in the genes that they are strong enough and resilient. So we do that volunteering activity. On that regards, I was speaking with Siddharth, and he said that there is something coming up. Then I told wow, I would love to be a listener there. Let me see, I can come over, And yes, I wanted to also participate, and this is the talk I wanted to give. But, there is always a problem when you become a speaker at the end. You really have to look for points. Where is it something like I'm owning? Unfortunately, nothing. From morning, there is crossover one or the other that, all are spoken about. But let me just summarize, and I thought I will tweak it to my experience and relevance so that, it is somewhere, some message is going on. So the topic that is given to me is New Age Infrastructure, Industry Academia Collaboration. So bridging the gap. Next slide, please. Yes, we really have veterans here, given the, for me it is from the internet, so I would not have been so accurate. We have the think tank, so I'll just summarize that one thing is very strong is 2040, we are going to be having a massive youth population, right? So 200 million working age adults by 2040, and 7 to 8 million youth entering the labor market annually, which is a huge number. But unfortunately, 83% of the total unemployed youth or people in India are unemployed. So this is all statistics again taken from internet, but it has been widely discussed and debated, and that is why I think this collaboration is there to soon implement it. So next slide, please. So, but we also have to believe, and we have shown that there have been tech-driven solutions to grassroots innovations that have been happening in India, and the startups are doing extremely well. Okay, so we should take pride in ourselves, and that is the direction. Okay, and the solution, there have been solution providers not only to the urban level, but also to the rural level populations, and 768,000 jobs created in the past 6 years. Again, it is statistics. So we should be confident that we are going in the right track with the NEP. We successfully implement, then there is a lot of scope. So with respect to the startup, I would like to add one point. We recently, 4 months before, we were sponsoring a set of private Indian startups from India, and we were sponsoring them to do a pitch session at Conclave of India, Dubai, to the venture capitalists. I can see, as young as 21, 22 people who have just finished their engineering, but coming up with some solution to be a private space player. And Skyroot Aerospace has got good amount of venture capitalist investment from Dubai as well. So this is the confidence level of Indian startup ecosystem, and around 130 registered Indian startups in private space industries, at least a couple of, at least 10, a dozen of people are doing quite well, and they've got good investors as well. So let us believe that we are doing in good track, and look forward to how we can change it at the education level to bring it up more. Next slide, please. Okay, I don't really want to touch upon this, you know it better, but I'm sorry for that. But these are some of the schemes that even Tier 2, Tier 3 colleges, when they want to participate in this kind of collaborations, they can look forward for such Bharat government initiatives and where they can tap the resources. But I do interact with some of the youths in India. They tell me we are working on DRDO's project, and we have, got a funding and we are doing it. I think private institutions in Tier 2, Tier 3 level also have an accountability when we are, creating individuals as an engineer or whatever domain it is. There should be an accountability, at least provide an awareness where such, schemes are available, how should they tap it. Next slide. Yes. The challenges and opportunities is what must be considered before we start to implement. How are you going to implement to Tier 2 and Tier 3? Yes, IITs are doing well. NITs are doing well. What about a college in a rural area which limited access to the resources? So there can be local solution providers. That is one thing. And in India, we have fortunate to have very good internet connectivity across. So why don't we do technological, solutions to the problems, which the startups have been doing in the past 6 years, and we have created good job as well as, good economic output has been proven already. So we have to think in that direction. But always the challenge and opportunity in industry, R&D, academia collaborate, you have to really streamline the IP challenges and address the IP challenges. So while we are coming up with policy implementation or collaboration, I think we need to take that into account when we are discussing. Then if there is, because we know the importance of patents, when there is some accountability there, then there is serious product evolvement comes. Or it doesn't end with a paper, or it doesn't end with one particular domain. Next slide, please. Okay, so these were, again, it would be a summary as well as my thought process onto that also. Link university research with market needs, real world projects. So it need not go into a big project level. You can make some prototypes that are relevant to the local industry. So that way the local MSME or industry participation will be interested in what you are trying to do. So instead of just speaking and ideation, make small prototypes from the student level, and then link with your professor and showcase that we are capable of doing this. So naturally the industry will get involved with you. So that is what I was trying to say. And if the Skill India, the co-op opportunities. So while we speak of the jobs in the West or education in the West, there is Canada's co-op program, UK's co-op program. So where it is different from internship, is the industries give them a job while they are learning to spend few months and work in that domain. That creates interest. And that also you're applying immediately as and when you're learning. I think that is high time we start implementing. We have enough youth, we have enough industries, we have enough sectors. So why don't we synergize and take it forward in a small scale level, which you can think over later. And network building with local industries, right. Today, in 2 days of time, we could see so many industry players coming and discussing. So this should be a regular practice. So the students get to interact with industry, so they can come up with prototypes where they think, yeah, okay, I can make this, I am knowledgeable about this, so let me do that. And increase time allocations on internships and research. When I say we want to replicate MIT model, at least with BITS I'm collaborating. I know they have got PS1 and PS2, 2 months and 7 months in the engineering, which gives you enough time. This is an anger in me, what I am saying, or this is a child in me speaking while I was doing engineering. I wanted to have, when I was an electronics engineer, I wanted to go and work in a semiconductor industry. Electronics engineer and no semiconductor, is a case. So, but whereas we should think of such kind of, internship programs, at least to the, not as a paid internship, or at least as a work. Again, I'm taking the examples of today morning talk also. In US or UK, when your child comes, tomorrow my son is going to go abroad. So doing a menial job to sustain is not concerned, it's a dignity job, right? So that is, here when I go out as an engineer, I should go sit my legs crossed and I should, sit in a AC room comfortably working. That concept has to grow. You have to go hands-on. An engineer should know the plumbing job. The engineer should do, you should know if this is not operating, why is it not operating? Let me really go hands-on. So that hands-on skill has to be promoted right from school education. Next slide, please. Okay, this was something, I think you can play this video. It is a simple 2 minutes video. You tap it. What happened? This is playable. It's a YouTube link.
Youth are typically eager to embark on a career journey, but often lack the on-the-job and soft skills required. Entry-level jobs often require a minimum of 3 years' experience. This means that youth struggles to find real opportunities to gain the experience they require. Those looking to start their own businesses may also lack the startup capital needed to realize their business goals. It is therefore no surprise that 3 elements are crucial in supporting young people in accessing jobs. 1. Skills training. 2. Financial support. And 3. Work experience. Supporting youth in these 3 areas will go a long way in helping them access the job market that they need. Let's consider some youth employment strategies. 1. Make businesses aware of the benefits of hiring young people. Employing youth means that a business can prepare, mentor, and secure its workforce for the future. 2. Governments can provide incentives, like business tax benefits, to encourage employers to hire young people. Thereby, businesses are rewarded, whilst young talent gains valuable work experience. 3. Organizations can encourage entrepreneurial thinking by giving youth opportunities to try new ideas and by providing young employees with resources to implement these. 4. Youth education programs can develop business, technical, and life skills. Teaching the youth to adapt to changes in climate, economy, or society will also allow them to think out of the box and come up with innovative strategies. 5. Offer on-the-job training to provide youth with employment and also to give them that valuable work experience. This benefits companies too, as it helps build a skilled workforce. 6. Embrace cross-generational mentoring. Diverse teams are often better at innovating ideas, solving problems, and productivity because different generations share their skills, experience, and fresh ideas. 7. Provide startup hubs to help counter the common challenges faced by startups. For example, internet connectivity and resources like computers and other equipment will provide an economical and supportive environment. And finally, encourage youth to utilize the internet to advance their skills and knowledge in order to prepare them for employment. This can give them vital background and increase their chances of securing employment.
Okay, thank you. And that's a small video summarizing all the points. So I will just go to the case study with mine so that I can link certain things. Can we have the next slide, please? Next. Yes. So because I was from the space domain, I feel space is the best example. So I will begin with my story, why this EduTech for space, so that you understand as an individual what had happens. Yes, I was an electronics engineer, and then I happened to join an interdisciplinary in polymer technology in my master's because I wanted to move to the city, to the top first college, so that I get a job. So that was the aspect, but fortunately I was absorbed by ISRO because ISRO wanted interdisciplinary skills those days. So coming to that, space is the best example of STEM. We had the director from the SHAR yesterday speaking. Nobody identifies them as, electronics engineer, a computer engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. You have to be a systems engineer, and you should have this, cross-disciplinary engineering, and your skills matter more than what domain you come from. So we have taken, for example, space has given the maximum technological benefit, and there are a lot of spin-offs. How many of you know the scratch-resistant glasses which you use was basically from, NASA's spin-off, right? The prosthetic limbs that we have, again, is a spin-off. So there are lots of benefits like that to society. So that is why space education I was feeling, will be a strong to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in school, STEM education in school. Okay, and so what do we do here? Basically, I was an engineer. That is why the entrepreneurship skill, which the gentleman in the morning was saying, irrespective of whether you're whatever domain from, financial independence and basic finance skills and basic management skills has to be taught. Why you should take an MBA to get upskilled there, right? So fortunately, in my case, Being a homemaker helped me in, starting my own business because I knew how to manage finance, I did not do an MBA. So I think that has to go inherent with the education system, little bit of that. And homemaker gives you a little of management skills as well. So that helped me. And for funding, I had to just borrow a little of money from my husband and then take it up and scale it up. And fortunately, in this 2.5 years, we are good to go. Sustainable model is there. Okay, so coming to what do we do? So when there was an Expo 2020 Dubai, where we had an Indian pavilion, I was given an opportunity to be a speaker because wherever there is mic, I love to go and grab and talk. It was Expo, so I thought I will grab this. And I had the Moon Man of India, Dr. Malswamy Annadurai, who is the man behind Chandrayaan-1, the first moon project, and the mission director of Mangalyaan also. So he was speaking on space industry, the second Kulshekhara opportunities. So I was talking on the dais about my ambitious mission, why I believe space education has to be given to the youth. And then he agreed. Then I felt that there is a synergy, that my thought process is not wrong. I will convert it into a business model. So what is, with respect to Swamiji's talk also, we knew the planetary positions. We had a beautiful, horoscope predictions, and our moon calendar is the best. Okay, so with all this, what did we do? Following the Western education, yes, we wanted to build ourselves, have an education system, but we forgot transition of knowledge in these years. It was not that we knew astronomy. Yes, we knew astronomy very well, but we have lost teaching it. How many of us sincerely do stargazing as a family today? And how much to learn from that? By the time the sun is yellow in color when you observe on Earth, but when you go to the space, it is white in color because there is no atmospheric refraction. It's a concept of simple science. Once you start teaching science in that concept, I tell you, trust me, that there will be a lot of research of interest shown towards science. It's because you teach it in NCERT curriculum, you ask them to give reason, put a tick mark, 2 marks, 3 marks, this reason is not valid. That is where we fail. So teaching science as fun through space as a context will definitely help. So these are certain techniques that we can use. And we have done. So for example, for grade 1 student, we have taken up a nursery rhyme. Instead of Yankee Doodle went to town, we have made a nursery rhyme on dwarf planets. So how many of us know that there are dwarf planets existing in our solar system? So we should know that, right? It is not part of our curriculum. So they sing Maki Maki, Homia, Ceres, and so they know Pluto. So while we studied, Pluto was considered as the 9th planet in the solar system, even when I studied, and later now it is removed. We only have 8 planets. Why is Pluto removed? We should know, right? So that kind of spirit, we are missing all those things with respect to the education system. I think we have to update the curricula, and we need not wait for the government to do that, because one such project, can we have the next slide? Okay, one such project, what we have done is the same Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan school. There is a team in Middle East of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. So which is a CBSE school in the Middle East. We have teamed up with them. We have taken up 5 branches. From grade 1 to grade 12, as a pilot model, we have taken up certain topics. They have a rigorous academia, believe me, the same like CBSE runs, but still we have tapped certain Saturdays when they are free, we do not have any activity, throughout the year to integrate space into science. There is no test, it is only the concepts and activity. In the end, they exhibit the knowledge as projects. They do projects and they exhibit. And the amount of interest towards science, understanding science has grown multifold. Believe me, people here, it has really grown multifold. So these are some things that we can think of incorporating. And India is a pioneer in space. But unfortunately, even among us, until Chandrayaan-3, succeeded, we didn't believe in ourselves, or nor we are bothered about to know what launch. Something is going on TV, okay? But we are not bothered about what is happening. There is one launch this year, okay, there is one more launch next year. What is happening? So, but this curiosity, unless it is created in the young minds, whatever numbers we are saying, we cannot reach there. So let us put small efforts in every domain like this. Because I'm from space domain, I'm speaking about space. Every domain like that and try to implement. So I will touch upon this project, which is Project Mahasat. Again, this is an engineering college, BITS Pilani in Dubai campus. So what have we done there? Dr. Srinivasan Madapusi, who is the director there, he's a person with roots again from India, Chennai, and then he has moved across the globe, and he found STEM, the core engineering value, because he has been in US, he has been in Singapore, he has been in Australia, the core engineering value is like diminishing, but engineering is one of the strength, right? And so to create that interest, so we just spoke on what value addition can we do. Then space is a topic of interest. So we introduced a project Mahasat. Unfortunately, India has access to ISRO, India has access to numerous space resources, but being an Indian institution in Dubai, we are expats, so we cannot approach the UAE Space Agency as well. We are outside India, NRI, so we cannot tap the Indian resources as well. So I acted as a interlink, and we took students, it was only the UG course, so we took students from civil engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science engineering, IT, every domain, and we pooled faculty. There was an inhibition, let me be frank. Electronic engineer, the mechanical faculty was finding it difficult. Why should I waste time for some coding that is going on? But we pooled them together. It is a 2 years project. First project, we introduced them what is space, what is satellite, what is rocketry, what is happening in space domain. Within 3 weeks, because we don't have a launch base there, we made a very tiny satellite and we lifted it upon with drone by taking permission and taught satellite communication, how it happens. So that was 6 weeks they could understand what is space communication, satellite rocketry. Then we went to establishing a ground station here, you see here. And the ground station, now, before even they have a satellite, now they know how to track real-time satellite. There are 5,000 satellites in the low Earth orbit. Just having some, Somaya University, I saw the students having it here. So when you have it as a facility, and we are doing outreach activity to the schools over there. So Indian schools, annually they come and visit. They see this facility. So these are type of things. So this is a weather map, and now how we are extending is engineering students to understand a weather map, decode, and understand the weather predictions of Dubai with respect to the map that they take from the ground station. So these are this is not part of the engineering syllabus, but still we are trying out of case studies and projects. I think that can be taught about while we are trying to do that. It doesn't require an antenna setup. You can do in a very sophisticated way or in a very simple way, in a frugal way you can do. So these are all simple techniques that you can implement according to the budget in the school or university wise and correct to real world applications so that, because tomorrow space is a $1 trillion industry. We need not reinvent anything because we are already one among the top 5 players. And we need a lot of youth in the space domain. It happened to me. I finished my MTech and, I was recruited while I was doing my MTech. So I landed there. I did a project, but I did not know how to do a project for space. It took me at least 5 years to learn how space and my engineering will collaborate. So when this is freely available, resources are available, we have 20,000 ISRO scientists, why don't we use them? Why don't we use those resources? It's another $1 trillion market, right? So like that, it can happen to any of the engineering skills that we already possess. I think it's high time we have to think in that aspect. I guess I made little of sense while I'm trying to share my experience. I have to tweak my slides totally and try to relate to the crowd to speak some sense and something new. Thank you for this opportunity. Would be very happy if I can, contribute at least 0.1% to the think tanks here who are thinking how to implement this. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Sudha Vishwanathan. I now request Mr. Shiv Shukla to come over and felicitate Dr. Sri Sudha. As we continue to enrich our conclave with valuable insights and experiences, the next session is a success story. I invite Dr. T.G. Vijaya, Director, Kirloskar Institute of Management, and Ashwin Kumar, Head of HR, Kirloskar Institute of Management, on stage. Let me introduce both of them for you. Dr. Ashwin Kumar, as I said, is Head of HR, Kirloskar Institute of Management. Dr. T.J. Vijaya is has a distinguished career marketed by a robust educational foundation and extensive administrative experience. Dr. Vijaya has excelled in various domains including teaching, research, consultancy, and counseling. Prior to her current role, she served as a director at the School of Inspired Leadership and her leadership positions in esteemed institutions and in other esteemed institutions. Dr. Vijaya's academic credentials include a PhD in industrial psychology and an MBA, complemented by her tenure as professor and director at PSG Institute of Management, Coimbatore, where she imparted knowledge in courses such as organizational behavior and human resource management. Over to you both. You can sit and speak or stand here and speak. Yeah, I need that. Sure.
Check. All right, so can we have our slide put up, please? Perfect. So, very good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for being and giving the support and having a very patient hearing. We will try our level best to ensure that we stick to time. I do understand it's been really taxing to everyone's minds, and we'll try making it as exciting as possible. My name is Ashwin Kumar, and I am the Head HR for Kirloskar Institute of Management. And I've taken up this role about 2 months ago. Before this, I was the corporate world, where I was the HR business partner with Kirloskar Oil Engines Limited. So coincidentally, it is a good fitment for me to talk about the success story, because from the company to the institution, how the collaboration happened is what. So before we start off, I'd request everyone to just have a look at the video that we have.
What does a bicycle mechanic know about cutting-edge technology? As it turns out, a lot. The products we create withstand incredible pressure. They also power industries. You see, it's about where we are going and who we are going with. Walking into a future of possibilities, a future that's limitless.
This is a very small snippet of our organization that we would like to bring in, and the theme was limitless. So we spoke about what does a bicycle repair person know about engineering. He was our founder. Mr. Shantanu Rao Kirloskar, I would request all of you all to please, Lakshman Rao Kirloskar, to have a look at this person's legacy, who believed and thrived in innovation. And with his vision, we were able to be the first with respect to the centrifugal pump, the motor, the diesel engine, air compressor, latch, and the CPCB4 Plus ARAI compliant. We were the first ones to get that certification. And that's how much we believe in innovation and beyond just manufacturing, right? So we discovered that as to one common theme that all of us spoke about, when it comes to economics, demand versus supply, we definitely have a lot of supply of students, educated students. The issue happens when it comes into employable students. Employability is the question mark, and that's where this entrepreneurship, that's where the innovation, that's where the practical learning, that's where we talk about outreach programs, and all of that stuff comes into picture. So, with that, we decided how do we, as a, as an organization, resolve this. First and foremost, we just want to take a quick minute to talk about our value system that we have, right? If you look at it, it talks about excellence, integrity, collaboration, empathy, value creation, and innovation, innovative thinking. Pretty much this is the philosophy that Kirloskar as a group follows in every single aspect that we would want to bring into picture. So what did that translate into? It translated into some successful businesses that we've gotten into. Primarily, it was engineering and innovation, with Kirloskar Oil Engines, with Ferris, pneumatic, chillers, industries. But now we've also started exploring beyond the manufacturing realm, with Arca FinCorp that's coming into picture, where we look at financial services, with Avanti Spaces, which is into real estate. Now, why are we doing this? Because we thought, why not go beyond? Because our theme is limitless. And how is it that we can bring in this institutions that we bring across everywhere, these organizations, to help empower all of our people? And that's where our practice has gone. Just to give you a quick number in terms of what our strength is as a group company, right? We're talking about close to 134 years of experience, history. That's the legacy that Kirloskars are, right? With close to almost 7,000 plus employees that we cater to across 30 different countries, right? We're talking about almost close to 1 million plus gensets, 120,000 castings, 50% of CNG stations are powered by the Kirloskar engines. All of this stuff are, let's say, boastworthy in terms of what we've done. But the main question that we wanted to kind of address over here is what the success story was, why Kim, right? And that's exactly what we wanted to share in terms of, and this is really spoiling the rhythm. So best in terms of what is it that we would want to actually give, right, to our employees? What is the kind of contribution that we would want to make to the people that is going to come in and join us? And that's where we started looking at, the resilient supply chain, people focused, where we're looking at, wide customer base, we're looking at employee base, we're looking at manufacturing excellence and a very strong R&D focus. We were not looking at being called as manufacturers. We wanted to be known more as engineering company, where research and development was the prime focus. So we looked at DET hiring, we looked at GT hirings, we looked at management trainees, right? GTs are graduate engineer trainees, DETs are diploma engineer trainees, brought them in at different levels, got them attuned for a year and a half, complete robust training program done, post which are absorbed into our on-roll situation. And now we've taken a step ahead, and we're also doing something called as fellowship trainees, where we are hiring doctorates with maybe 1 or 2 years of experience in the manufacturing sector to join our R&D team and continue the innovation, the legacy of innovation. Because we are looking at towards how we can have a sustainable environment, sustainable future, and make this place a better place, right? So with this part of it, the sustainable business growth as an ESG-focused approach, strong focus on the governance, focus on ensuring that the low leverage and cash generation is taking place, and also effective use of our established asset base. And when I say asset base, we talk about all of our companies put together, where we are co-helping each other out. So let me just quickly take you through in terms of the green initiatives that we've taken. KFIL is it's a completely 100% solar powered plant, right? You're talking about our Kargil plant, which is the largest plant for Kirloskar Group, being carbon neutral, and we're certified. And we've got the Golden Peacock Award 3 times in a row. And that's how innovative we are, and that's how sensitive we are towards ensuring That yes, while we want to innovate, while we want to deliver the best product, we want to ensure that much lesser impact it creates to the environment around us. We've definitely got a vertical green wall, we've got the windmills installed, and we are trying and figuring out. Now, why is it that I'm talking about all of this? You will get to know. This is just a build-up to the actual story, right? We'll talk about how our story in terms of adapting Industry 4.0 actually took place. Right from, building awareness, where we spoke about it, to building capability. So we actually had a rigorous program that we had planned out, we chalked out, and we ensured that pilot project prototypes for idea validation across companies were sent out. We did the governance in terms of what kind of a steering committee had to come in, what was required, how do we go about it, and then we set up the scale-up labs via strategic partnerships. So it's, as Swamiji rightly said, vision plus action is what we are looking at, and that's exactly what we did in partnership. And this is where I'm coming into. When I said we're trying to create a sustainable environment within the Kirloskar group, if you look at it, the top three that you're seeing over there, the oil engines, pneumatics, and chillers, they're complementary business, primarily focused on engineering, research and development, and manufacturing, right? So we look at the forward and backward integration strengthening to the system overall. So we all know that in terms of the industries that we are working on, ferrous is going to be a very important thing. And hence, KFIL came into existence. Now, irrespective of that, we understood digitalization is the way to go. And hence, ISMT came into picture, where we had our own in-house team solutions being provided in terms of automation and digitalization. So forward and backward integration is something that we are focusing on. Now, all of this feels good, but at the same time, we also look at what's next. The vision never talks about tomorrow, 1 year down the line. The vision is long-term. It talks about 5 years, 10 years down the line. How am I going to sustain what we've made? And that's capability and capacity building. And that's where Kim and the Center for Industry 4.0 came into picture. So, how exactly did all of this materialize is where Dr. Vijay will take forward from here. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. We heard Ashwin talk about the Kirloskar Group. Now, a big focus of the Kirloskar Group has always been people. And way back, almost 30 years ago, when Kirloskars were known for manufacturing, they had started something called the Kirloskar Institute of Advanced Management Studies. The primary focus of that institution was on management development programs which were meant to be in-house, which basically meant Kirloskars being excellent in manufacturing, most of their employees had technical expertise, but there was a need to upscale all these employees as the organization was growing. And that's when they had the Management Development Center, which was primarily focusing on skill enhancement for these already technically bright individuals. And that's when the MDP was started. As MDPs were growing, Kirloskar Group was also growing, and the idea was there was a need for people from other domains as well. It was just not engineering. They were moving into different spaces, which meant to say they needed people with, experience in finance. They wanted people with HR backgrounds and so on and so forth. And so sometime about in 97, 98, we started the PGDM program. And thus was born the Kirloskar Institute of Advanced Management Studies, which today has MDP as one of its big wings. But also the other part of the Kirloskar Institute of Management is the PGDM, the program that we run. The program is in one ways a very traditional program that is talking about the 4 or 5 different specialization management programs offer, but then there is a difference to the way the whole program is delivered. There's a difference to the focus on terms of what we try and do towards skill development in the program that we offer. And so our vision, if you see, there are two major things: to provide society a center of learning that excels in management, education, and professional development. As we heard earlier this morning, that one of the big skills that's required is entrepreneurship. To us, because we were the large conglomerate, it was entrepreneurship in the disguise of an intrapreneurship. So the idea was every single manager was supposed to be thinking like an entrepreneur within the organization. And that is where we felt we need to create a program that focuses and delivers skills very specific to the requirements of our industries that we are supporting. And the value patterns, what are we trying to do? End of the day, when we are creating and delivering a program, we said we are going to create professionals for the industry. And in terms of values, the entire curriculum that we build around is based on these values. There is excellence, which I will talk about. There is empathy, because the focus of the organization or the institution is on people. People have to be very high on integrity. We're talking about how people can work together in teams. We are also talking about having all these values so that we can create newer value for the organization and thereby result in a whole lot of innovative thinking for the organization. Now, this is about the Kirloskar Institute of Management. It operates out of 2 campuses. The initial campus was started 30 years ago at Harihar, where we're about 4 or 5 hours from Bangalore. That's the location of Harihar. In 2010, we started the Pune campus, and both these programs offer PGDM. Both these campuses are approved by AICTE, and the typical specializations that we offer are sales, marketing, operations, HR, finance, and of course, Industry 4.0, which is very unique to us. Our capacity at the Harihar campus is 180 intake. Our intake at the Pune campus is 120. The big advantage that we have with both these campuses, they are 100% residential campus. So that allows us to kind of not follow a 9-to-5 schedule, but a whole lot of activities, skill building, skill enhancement, all of that can happen way beyond the 8-to-5 or 9-to-5 kind of a working hour. MDP, as I mentioned earlier, is a big wing of the Kirloskar Institute of Management. As we are in today, most of our MDP, the kind of time we have, the kind of resources we have, a lot of our effort goes into creating, designing, delivering programs in-house, because the group is so large, the demand is huge, and so we are able to do that primarily internally. But we are also growing our MDP center, and I'll tell you in a minute why we are trying to grow and why we are investing a lot more there. Because and so what is happening now is we are also having an outside focus. There is a demand from other organizations wanting to come kind of help us do their MDPs and so on and so forth. Having said that, I must also say that as much as we are a beautiful residential campus, the MDP center is a state-of-art facility. We have about 80 rooms, absolutely top-notch, very well equipped. We have great, classrooms where we can have, there's a whole lot of outdoor activity we can do. So we're all geared up to do an excellent MDP. In terms of governance, we are governed by the Societies Act. Both the institutions are under the trust. And in terms of academic regulatory bodies, we are under AICTE. Now, I'll just quickly run you through some of the unique features for us as an institution. The first mantra to us at KIM is we believe in management beyond academics. So what does that mean to us? The idea is academics is one part, but beyond that, we are talking a whole lot in terms of skill development. So when I say skill development, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a 33% rule. At KIM, we believe whatever be the course that we are teaching, 33% is taught, 33% is self-learned, and 33% is experiential. Now, we are able to do what is called a self-learned and an experiential approach of almost 66% purely because we have the support of this industry. For example, we have, I'll just explain that principle with one of our latest experiments that we did. Now, it's a huge campus. We have about 15 acres, which is meant for Kim, and then we have another 5 acres, which is an organic farm. So on the organic farm, we grow a variety of things. We grow our vegetables, we grow rice, and so on and so forth. And all of you from local, so you will understand the Inzine rice. So that's something that we go, organic rice we grow. So once we had this year, what we did is usually the rice is given away to people and distributed. Now we built that rice program into our sales and marketing program where we said, if you're doing marketing, the whole idea is to start from understanding your market to probably go to a market strategy and actually selling it. So the whole process of identifying the product, kind of packaging it, branding it, going digital online, selling it, using every possible media to sell is something that we did. And so that is the experiential bit that we are able to bring into our program. And we have many such things that we have done purely because of paucity of time. I'll not go into all of those details, but we very clearly follow a 33% rule, typically supported only by industry. The other experiential thing that we do is, because we have these multiple industries, live projects is a part of our curriculum. Now, these are not something that we go after, but then company is a part of our governing board. And so every time they have little projects coming up, it probably comes to Kim where students are able to try and learn and do. And so it's a great learning for the faculty, for the student, and the industry in large is benefiting. Now, we are aware that technology is the way forward. Yes, there are a lot of flip side to it, but our belief is, doesn't matter whether you're marketing, finance, or HR, if you're into the business domain, you should be able to speak the language, and thereby we have integrated a whole lot of courses which are technology oriented into the program. A big USP for us is our C4I4. This is the Center for Industry 4.0 lab. Now, this is a lab that is created by the group in support from the Ministry of Heavy Industries. One aspect of the C4I4 lab is also to create similar labs in academic institutions. And at Kim, we have a manufacturing excellence lab, which is basically talking about Industry 4.0, and that is a very beautiful interactive learning lab, which students enjoy learning, understanding how manufacturing excellence and all the nitty-gritties of manufacturing excellence is brought in there. We are also looking at creating centers of excellence. And one center of excellence that we are actually talking about is creating a center for sustainability. Now, that is not going to be a standalone. We are creating a center of sustainability in association with the Kirloskar Oil Engines Limited, which is probably one of the best examples of sustainability in India. So there is that cross-learning. We create the center, we have the support of COEL, then all the projects that happen, some of them happen in the Kim campus, some of them are live projects where students actually go into COEL and understand. So there is that whole learning in terms of industry academia that we are trying to promote. Now, this is typically a nutshell what we are trying to say. We are trying to say we are an institution supported by industry, and so 50% of our courses are delivered by practitioners. If I'm teaching a particular concept, I pick up somebody from the COEL group who has probably applied it. For example, I teach change. If I'm talking resistance, COEL has gone through transformation. Can a COEL person come in and do a course delivery with me? We're talking about industry mentorship. Members from the COEL industry of all our Kirloskar group are mentors to our students, where they agree to spend X numbers of hours in a year with a student, just mentoring them, shaping them, having coffee or tea with them, interacting with them. We have, of course, experiential learning projects that I mentioned earlier. Technology, which we kind of talk in terms of Industry 4.0. So there are courses on transformation, digital transformation, how that is happening, and so on. A very unique feature to us is also our business immersion program. We believe that since most of our students are fresh out of college or out of an undergrad program, it's very important that they need to understand the world of work, and so we move on to what is called a 3-month business immersion program, which has been very successful for us. Now, in a nutshell, We are an institution supported, collaborated and probably mentored by industry. Industry experts are a part of every single activity that we do. And so if we look at KIM for the future, as much as we are trying to understand the tectonic shifts that are happening in higher education space, as much as we are trying to make maximum out of the new NEP coming out, we are also understanding that with these tectonic shifts and the NEP, there is a need to constantly look at our core competencies, which we are constantly evaluating in terms of how we need to move given whatever is the landscape that's around. And so our strategic objectives are constantly being questioned, evaluated, and re-evaluated. And all of this we do within the context of our brand. And when we talk about our brand, we are talking about a very strong value pattern, which is very high on ethical standards. And so to us at KIM, the strategy in terms of where we are seeing KIM moving is actually work in progress. What started off as an MDP is today a premier business school. And then we're trying to see what else we need to do. And so at KIM, we are pretty excited about the future. And the future, we believe, is limitless. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. T.G. Vijay and Mr. Ashwin Kumar. I now request Dr. Ramesh Unikrishnan to come over and felicitate Dr. T.G. Vijay. I request Mr. Pratosh Bansal to come over and felicitate Dr. T.G. Vijaya and Mr. Ashwin Kumar. With this, we come to an end of the first part. Participants are requested not to leave the auditorium. The panel session will start soon. Also, there is an announcement. Your participation certificates can be collected from the registration desk post-lunch. Thank you.
नक्की आहे ना? हो हो आहे.
I request all participants to please occupy your chairs. We are going to start this third and the last panel discussion of Trio Conclave in few minutes. May I request all members to please settle down. A very good afternoon to all of you. Let me welcome you all to this third panel discussion of Trio Conclave. May I request the moderator and panelists to please come on the stage. This is a theme-based panel discussion. The theme of this particular discussion is Sculpting Excellence in Industry-Academia Collaboration, New Frontiers. The entire session will be moderated by Dr. Achala Danait, ma'am. Let me just